Hello everyone! Welcome to another stream of love, money, and rock and roll. This is the week that we're beating this game. Not today, definitely tomorrow though. Definitely tomorrow if I read fast and read well. But yeah, hopefully everyone's doing good. We're on the final route, the Ellie rock and roll route. And we're gonna do some rock and roll, hopefully. Or we would, but I think 8 students were murdered, and I think Kagome is taking the fall. She wants to be the main character again, but no, can't do it. You're not the main character anymore. I am. But still, no matter how much I wanted to sleep. Hello, South Highlander. How you doing today? What's up? You're first. Are you gonna leave immediately? I hope you can stick around. I gotta think about how to do that. People redeeming first and then leaving. I gotta see if I can not negate that somehow. I don't think I can. I felt a sense of unease that wouldn't let me stay in bed any longer. Alright, here we go. You ready? Cool. A cup of hot tea helped me to come to my senses. My eyes weren't closing by themselves anymore, although it still felt like there was a dense fog inside my head. I walked out to the porch to freshen up a bit and stared over at Himitsu's house. I couldn't say the fight we had yesterday had been serious, but she had been acting weird. I couldn't have expected her to be upset, start crying, or even hysterical. But at the same time, Himitsu wasn't pretending that nothing happened. Had that been the last straw? My urge to apologize, a habit I built over the years, was stronger than my willpower. I still hesitated for a while, but then crossed the road and rang the doorbell of Himitsu's house. Didn't open immediately, and Ryunosuke-san, Himitsu's father, appeared on the doorstep. Good morning, Nikolai. He clearly wasn't expecting guests so early. Or maybe me in particular. Good morning, Ryunosuke-san. Is Himitsu home? No, Himitsu isn't here. She must be shopping then. When will she be back? He gave me the look of a mortician evaluating a potential client. Hey, Mafia babe. What's up? Mafia babe, are you ready for the ending of this game? 'Cause we're getting close. Really, really close. Not anytime soon, Nikolai. Mitsu's staying at her grandmother's house for a while. You are? Me too. Her grandmother's house? But how have you been, though? I repeated, puzzled. Yes, she'll be living there for now. And for how long? I can't say for sure at the moment. Are we talking days or months, I think? Maybe longer. Ryunosuke-san, did something happen? You should know better than I, Nikolai. What does that mean? The meaning of his words took a while to reach my mind, but his tone was concrete. You just woke up? Well, good morning to ya. Happy morning, happy new week, and happy Sunday. It means that you should know what happened between the two of you. My Himitsu asked me to take her to her grandmother's place. Ah, so she asked you. Nothing yesterday has seemed to hint at this turn of events. That's all I have to say. Goodbye, Nikolai. And with that, Ryunosuke-san closed the door right in my face. Wasn't very polite, to say the least, not that he ever bothered much with manners. If there was anyone I really used to be afraid of, it was Himitsu's father. Every one of his words and gestures had a calculating, cold confidence to them. He never said more than he had to, never tried to impress others, and seemingly didn't care much what others thought of him. If someone like him says something, he means it. Could he have taken Himitsu far away from me on his own? I thought he could. But in a way, it happened too quickly. I was sure that if yesterday Himitsu had known that she was leaving, she wouldn't have at least hinted it. And what was months of maybe longer supposed to mean? I confidently pressed the buzzer. Second time it took even longer for Ryunosuke-san to open the door. Did you forget something, Nikolai? When I saw him again, I lost most of my confidence. What about school? She can't just leave like this, in the middle of the school year. I'll handle that. I'll handle that? I see, but... Nikolai, don't you think you should have worried about this before? Before what? I asked naively, and Ryunosuke-san frowned. Before you ruined your relationship with my daughter. I didn't reply. He was right, and arguing wouldn't get us anywhere. Good, at least you understand now. Goodbye. Once again, the door was slammed in my face without warning. Well, Himitsu hates us, Mafia. I went back home in deep contemplation. Still, Himitsu couldn't have just left. Yesterday's conversation didn't feel like a farewell. I had a rough idea of where her grandmother lived since I had been there a few times when we were little, but did I have the time to deal with that now? There was a ball and then Irina, Z, Ellie, months or maybe longer, huh? For a second I imagined I'd never see Himitsu again. I felt a dull pain in my chest. Even realizing what I'd done wrong, I didn't know whether I could have acted any differently. In large part, Kagome was in prison because of me. If we'd never known each other, things might have gone very differently for her. And if I was so worried about not doing enough for her, how would I have handled something happening to Himitsu? No, this was for the better. People like me should suffer. The problem was, by suffering myself, I made people around me suffer too. Yes, clearly I should have returned to my homeland after my parents' death. That is, unless I would have made new friends there and broken their lives too. What the hell is all this? I was sinking even deeper into the depths of depression. The insidious tuxedo already starting to gather dust was still lying on the table. It's all your fault. My arm was mid-swing when it stopped, and hung powerlessly in the air. Hello, Nebo. You have 102 notifications on your Discord server. That's a lot. Someone must be posting a lot of things, huh? Or just you haven't checked. But hey, it's fine. I don't check a lot of Discords either. But it's good to see you. How are you? After all, it costs a lot of money. I smiled at the comical side of the situation. We buy things we didn't need with money. We don't have time to impress people. We don't give a damn about us. Maybe I did want to impress Ellie, but that'd be much easier to do by playing the bass like a virtuoso than putting on a stupid clown suit. You're doing good today? Awesome. It's good to see ya. Suddenly, somebody rang the doorbell, and whoever it was, I was grateful for the unexpected visitor for distracting me from my self-flagellation. Kyosuke was standing at the doorstep with a sly look on his face. Hi, you got something serious to talk about, or... Although what serious matter could he be here about on a Saturday morning? Or... He squinted even harder so that his eyes became two narrow slits. I sighed and stepped inside. Well, come in, I guess. What does our bro want? Kyosuke walked into the kitchen after me, and I immediately noticed the tuxedo. So it's true. What? To be honest, I didn't quite believe Mike, but sure, he's not the biggest mouth in the city, but you, going to a ball? I didn't ask Michael not to tell anyone, and he often took requests or the lack of them literally, but he could have assumed. Well, imagine that. I sighed, grabbed the tuxedo and froze, not knowing what to do with it. I cannot ask why. What did you have to do to get an invitation to the ball at Kobayashi Estate? Yeah, you really can't. Kyosuke was practically dying of curiosity, and I decided it would be much easier and quicker to confess. Where do I start? Just so happens that I'm now the bass player in Ellie's band. I paused, waited for a comment, but he remained silent. So she invited me to the ball. The other guys didn't want to join, but she asked them to. Kyosuke didn't say a word. Aren't you going to say something? I'm just wondering whether I should punch you in the face for hiding something so important from me or congratulate you. Praise! Or maybe praise you and Michael on the incredible prank. It'd be an expensive prank. I scoffed, shaking my tuxedo. Music is great and all, but what about a more personal relationship? I don't know what you're talking about. I gave the default response, but still felt a pleasant chill run down my spine. Nick, seriously, how long have we known each other? I know you in and out. If you do, why are you asking? Because I need details. He rolled his eyes, jumped to me, grabbed my hands, and shook them back and forth. They sustain me. He wheezed in the voice of an anime villain. Hey, D. Williams. How you doing today? How's life treating ya? There aren't any. I tried desperately to push him away, succeeding after some effort. Don't crumple the tuxedo. So some rags are more important than a friend to you? These rags cost 30,000 yen. A compelling argument. He agreed and stepped back. There's nothing to tell you. Seriously, if there was something. I got tired of holding the tuxedo and put it on the kotatsu. I just don't know what's going to happen next. My life has been changing at the speed of light recently. He woke up 3 minutes ago. Well, good morning to ya. Top of the morning to ya. Or top of the noon to ya? But yeah, good morning. First Catherine, then Iwamura. Wait, but what do you have to do with Iwamura and the murders? He interrupted me immediately like it was an interrogation. I regretted mentioning Kagome at all. You know the joke you never tell people with big mouths? Nick, if you gotten yourself into something new, do you really think I'd... What are you implying, that I killed them all? I pretended to get angry to change the subject. No, of course not. Remember everyone in chat? There were eight murders. That's cool, huh? On this lovely rock and roll route. I thought you wanted to ask something about Ellie. I did. He agreed and lowered his head. Go ahead then. With what? With asking about her. Asking what? I don't know. Her cup size. That's what you always wanted to know, right? Do you know it? He exclaimed. I don't. How would I? But will you tell me when you find out? No, Kyosuke, even if I do, I won't. Fair enough. He agreed and walked to the fridge. Anything to eat? He opened it and made a face. I thought Himitsu-chan took care of you. Himitsu, she's busy now. Of course, if she really was going to be gone for as long as her father said, Kyosuke would find out sooner or later. But better later. Nobody cares about you except for me. You want to eat out then? I heard about this new restaurant next to. Not today. Need to prepare for the ball. I see. He drawled. I better be the first person you talk to about it. Of course. After Kyosuke left, I took the tuxedo out of the cover and tried it on. It had been better, looked better in the store. And then someone rang the doorbell again. Did Kyosuke forget something? Catherine! But it was someone I absolutely did not expect to see today. Catherine in the flesh. Why so fancy? She left as soon as I opened the door. Your every visit is a celebration. But really though, I'm going somewhere tonight. Looks like you're going to a ball or something. Precisely. Catherine looked surprised at first and then looked downcast. Will you invite me in? Sure. Hi. Well, we proceeded to the kitchen. Katya stopped hesitantly, as if she'd forgotten something. To what do I owe the honor? We haven't talked for so long, and it looks like you aren't happy to see me. Well, yeah, your story's done. Your story's been done, right? Right, guys? We hadn't talked for a year and a half before that. As I remember, you weren't so friendly with me when we returned to Japan. True enough. She suddenly agreed, wrapping her arms around herself and lowered her head. So what's the ball about? It's at Kobayashi Ellie's place. Heard of her? I had no reason to hide anything from Catherine. Moreover, I suddenly realized I hadn't even thought of her for a while. I have, but I had no idea you two were so close. I'm playing in the same band as her now. So you picked up your guitar again? Something like that. I shrugged and poured some water into a glass. For some reason, I was really thirsty. Well, congrats. Thank you. Everything's happening so fast and I still haven't quite figured out what's going on. She's attractive. You're a picky guy, only going for the very best. You mean yourself? Modesty adorns a person, but I look good enough without it. But still, looks like things are going fine for you. Relatively. Such terrible things are happening around you, but you're enjoying life anyway. What terrible things? Those murders. Oh, that's unpleasant. You never know how your fate will turn out. It's better not to think about that. Although not thinking has always been my most difficult part of me. Better not to think about that, she repeated quietly and looked at me dolefully somehow. So you wouldn't be too upset if I told you I want to return to the US? Why would I be? I responded, but inside it felt like somebody had stabbed me right through the heart. I don't know, just why so sudden? You've only been here for a couple weeks. Shouldn't have come back to Japan. It was a mistake. I didn't know how to respond to that. Katya looked upset, reserved, and grim, as if someone had forced her to come here and say all this. Maybe it was all her mother again. Did you make that decision yourself? If you mean my mom, she has nothing to do with it, for once. Then I really don't get it. You don't get what? She said as a statement more than a question. I braced myself. Not all honesty was good when it came to Catherine. Then why did you come back? I told you already. It's because of my mom's job. So the job doesn't matter anymore? Now the circumstances have changed. Really? How come? Like, I'm not asking for a report about, for instance, your relationship with Kobayashi Ellie. She finally raised her head and glared at me. Yes, but I don't spend my life jumping between island and continents. Are you lecturing me? I don't even know. Why did you come here if you don't want to tell me something? Just a few days ago, I probably would have been furious, but now I just found Catherine's behavior strange. To say goodbye. Is that surprising? She suddenly laughed, and tears gleamed in her eyes. I don't even know. What reaction did I expect? I should have just written another letter you'd never read anyway. What was so important in that letter? I felt like I'd done something unforgivable by not reading it. Just like when your numbers in the lottery are just one off from winning. You took the letter yourself. I tried to object timidly. After you kept it for how long? A year? In the past, what's there to talk about now? In the past. She flung her arms up in the air and turned away. Look how quickly everything changes for you. Just a few days ago you were running after me, crying about old times, and now you're putting on that stupid suit thinking you look like a millionaire. I'm not. You know, I really shouldn't have come here. If I'd just left, you wouldn't have even noticed. Okay, bye. Catherine shouted and ran out of the kitchen. Didn't try to stop her. Why would I? What would I do? In her last words, I could not hear just disappointment, but resentment and even regret. Women always enjoy having admirers, even if they don't take them seriously. Is that true, Mafia babe? Do you like having admirers and you don't take them seriously? Is this true? Has this visual novel cracked the human heart? Oh, you do? Oh, I gotcha. Was this the same thing? Has my entire relationship with Katya never been anything more? No, I couldn't believe that either. Had Catherine decided to leave, and already standing on the plane ladder, finally realized she was losing something important? Mafia, are you Catherine? Are you Catherine, but in this day and age? That would be insane! Even that it was the case, it was too late. And not only for her, for me too. Maybe, you say. Ho ho. It seemed I hadn't even noticed turning this new page in my life. As if I'd gone to bed one person and woken up as someone completely different. Spent the remaining hours before the ball languishing around. Katya hadn't chosen the best time for her visit. Ooh, look at this place. I took a taxi and got to Kobayashi's estate past sunset. Peering out of the darkness, a long cavalcade of luxurious cars were lined up before the gates. My driver whistled when we came closer and assaulted me with inappropriate questions. Maybe you are. Oh, snap. Are you all of the girls in this game? Except for the weird ones, the psychopaths. Finally, I left the car and looked around. On the one hand, it wasn't as scary as I'd imagined, but the obvious otherness of the place was still a bit frightening. Imagine you were all of them in the past. The other guests seemed quite comfortable here, greeting each other merrily, laughing, walking up the stairs to the 4-meter-high front doors. It took an effort to follow them. Ooh, fancy. Inside, the Kobayashi estate was even fancier, like a photo taken somewhere in the Louvre. I found myself in a huge hall already full of men clad in formal suits and women in gorgeous dresses. Nobody was paying attention to me, but I still felt wobbly on my feet. I leaned against one of the columns and shuddered when a waiter addressed me. Would you like some champagne? I automatically grabbed a glass from the tray and looked at the waiter through it. Distorted by the sprinkling liquid, his emotionless face looked like an ugly mask to me. Thank you, I briefly replied and took a sip. I was completely drunk. I remembered Michael's advice about being careful with alcohol at events like this. Where is that barely perceivable line that separates a drink for courage and 2 bottles downed from failed self-control? I decided to think about that later and then emptied the glass. Ellie was nowhere to be seen, and I could already feel the alcohol going to work. Michael had been right about the champagne. In order to distract myself a bit, I started looking over the crowd. The women were in mostly visually distinct parts of it, while the men who accompanied them, though different in height, weight, or hair, or lack thereof, more or less blended together into the samey mess of black and white. Aha! So suddenly, a strange couple stopped by the column I leaned against, a man of undefinable age wearing inappropriately dark glasses, and a woman who looked strangely like Irina. For a while they just stood there, paying no attention to me, but then the woman spoke. Spoke Russian. That lady is wearing such a wonderful dress. She made a vague nod somewhere off to the side, apparently pointing fingers was bad manners. Is it just my imagination, or is she together with the gentleman who came in the Rolls Royce? Natasha dear, nothing gives away a person belongs to the lower class more than an understanding of expensive clothes and cars. He replied simply, which immediately made me sympathetic. Victor! His companion's exclamation followed. Could it be just a coincidence that out of all the guests, the one standing next to me turned out to be Russians? Or had Irina sent them to make sure I completed my assignment? No. Then it would have been easier to give it to someone who wasn't a high school student. But the champagne was working. I heard my own voice before I even finished considering whether I should talk to them. What a weirdo wearing sunglasses inside. I know, right? Very weird. You're weird, sir. You know that? Sorry for eavesdropping, but since we find ourselves in the same company, so to speak, I knew I was spewing nonsense, but couldn't stop. You're from the USSR, right? Oh yes, how did you know? The woman asked with surprise and gave me a friendly smile. Probably by virtue of having ears.
Victor, you're unbearable. By the way, my name is Natalia.
Nikolai.
I introduced myself and looked at the man. His eyes were hidden behind those dark lenses, making it impossible to guess what he was thinking about. But for some reason, it seemed like he was silently chuckling at me.
Victor.
He reached out with a simple and open gesture. It's not often you meet someone of your age here, Nikolai. She stopped and suddenly waved her hands as if realizing she said something ridiculous. No, I didn't mean that. It's alright, I was invited by the mistress of the house.
How many more new people are in this game, by the way?
Feels like I keep seeing a new person each and every time I stream this game. Could I even call Ellie that? Maybe Kobayashi Jun had a wife who would be Ellie's grandmother, and then she'd have more of a right to be called the mistress of the house. So you must be Elizabeth's classmate. Yes, something like that. Little Ellie has grown up so fast, already inviting a suitor to a ball. We aren't...
Well, the lad clearly doesn't mind.
The man grinned, carefully snatching a glass of champagne from the tray of a passing waiter. To be honest, I've never been to a ball before.
Then have some, helps with the nerves.
He handed me a second glass that seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Michael's disapproving face appeared before my eyes, but these two had made me so tense I was having a hard time thinking logically. Drink, refuse. Let's see. Give me a second. Let's see. I'm guessing... Really hard to tell where I am right now. I guess, drink! I'm completely drunk. I smashed the whole room into pieces. Yay! Alright, hang on a minute. Give me a second. Okay, thank you. I accepted the glass and took a sip. Come on, your mom isn't watching. She isn't. I smiled weakly in response and drank a bit more. One way or another, since I started the conversation, I had to get to the point. If I may ask, look at that, you're speaking like a real Japanese already. Victor, I continued in a less confident tone. Do you work at the Soviet embassy? I work in the joint Soviet-Japanese company. I didn't even know if companies like that existed, but was too afraid to reveal my ignorance. And Victor is a famous writer, quite well known in certain small circles.
Small enough that the boy wouldn't have heard of me.
What do you write about?
Life.
He replied vaguely, drinking his champagne in one go, and looking rambunctiously around the hall. Searching for a waiter. Sorry, I'm mostly into science fiction.
Our life's full of it at every corner.
He laughed loudly, but to my surprise, nobody paid attention to us. By that point, one thing was clear. Victor had nothing to do with the KGB. He was more likely to be someone the KGB would have under surveillance. I couldn't say anything certain about Natalia, though. Irina had pretended to be an airhead at first, too. The champagne was going to my head. That second glass had clearly been too much.
Well, it's always nice to meet me here. I mean, in Japan in general, compatriots, so to say.
The pleasure is ours, Natalia said, instantly losing all interest in our conversation when she noticed someone in the crowd. Kumiko, I'm so glad to see you! She immediately ran away, leaving me alone with the strange writer.
Don't be so tense.
I'm not. His company was becoming more and more uncomfortable.
You'll find your girlfriend.
And indeed, I finally saw Ellie as she was coming down the stairs from the first floor. Excuse me. I gave him the empty glass and quickly maneuvering between guests, made my way to Ellie. Wow, look at her. She's beautiful. I was starting to think you'd abandon me here. Nick, hi. Ellie looked like my presence was a surprise to her.
I know, very cute.
Hey, Philtex. How you doing today? Vox here. How's life treating ya? You're just in time for some love, monies, and rocks and rolls.
And balls.
You look good. She was wearing a long snow-white dress and really did look stunning. I mean, great. It's a very beautiful dress. You're very beautiful. Thank you. She grew embarrassed. Was this really the first time she'd heard a compliment like that? Sorry, I couldn't quite control my tongue, and it felt like the entire Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra was playing in my head, while I've been asked to transcribe the timpani part of it in a notebook. That second class had clearly been too much. Don't worry, I understand. Ellie smiled, and all the tension disappeared at once. She understood. Let's dance? I don't know how. Don't worry, just follow my lead and everything will be alright, if you say so. Had I been sober, I would have never agreed to this. Have you been today, Philtex? We're dancing! We're dancing! We walked to the middle of the room. Ellie carefully half-embraced me, taking my right hand with her left. Ah! Just like this. 1, 2, 3. No harder than keeping rhythm on a guitar. Well, it depends on the person. She'd clearly gone uneasy on me with the pace. Some of the couples around us were spinning like the cabins of a Ferris wheel. I carefully repeated her every move, mostly managing to keep up. But soon the silence became completely unbearable, both in and of itself due to what I'd drunk. She's so pretty. She is pretty. And you gotta admit, I look pretty dashing from the back. Am I right? You look taller with heels. You know, I don't think they'll ever really get used to them. Sure, I have to wear a dress shoe sometimes. It can't be helped. Playing Among Us with some streamer, and they think for some reason you're a Ferrar. But whatever. Weird. Did you have fun with the streamer? That's the most important point. Nico looks nice. Yes. It's cool in a way. You weren't wasting time without telling me either. You never made small talk with someone I saw from upstairs. Those. I lost the rhythm a bit, but Ellie slowed down to compensate and carefully showed me the right movements again. I just heard them speak Russian. So you found some of your countrymen. Great. Yeah, I guess. While I was almost sure about Victor, I still couldn't make my mind up about Natalia. On the other hand, was it that important? After all, there was only 2 possible outcomes for Irina. I would either bring the photos or not. I immediately felt the unpleasant weight of the camera in my inner pocket. Good thing they weren't searching the guests at the entrance. What are you thinking about? It's like you're somewhere else. Yeah, sorry, I'm just a little anxious. You know, I've never been to a ball before. I've been getting dragged to all kinds of places since I was little, and I say they're all unbearably boring. But she was behaving much more reserved than usual, I guess. That's hard to imagine. How about you imagine bringing our equipment and instruments here, and performing in front of those dead inside geriatrics? That's even harder. The alcohol was starting to slowly lose its grip. Champagne goes to the head quickly, but doesn't linger long. I caught myself staring greedily at the shining silver trays filled with tall glasses of alluring bubbly. But I'm still glad you're here. That's because I'm keeping you from getting bored. No! She gave a short reply, kept silent for a while, and added in a quieter tone. Why is there a whole essay for one picture? Because that is what a visual novel is, Philtex. Visual novels are words and words and words. It's like a story. A story, but in video game form. Haha. Not just that. Why isn't anyone else from the band come? They don't like events like this. I see. I wondered if I would have found myself at the Kobayashi estate under different circumstances. And it's great that Z feels Z now has 2 socialites to keep each other company. Ellie smiled with the corners of her mouth only, very politely and adult-like. When the situation called for it, she could act like a real lady. The dance was coming to its end, mimicking the other men around me. I bowed to Ellie and she responded with a light curtsy. Lighter music started playing, and the couples spread out across the hall, forming groups of different sizes, starting conversations with each other, some occupying the tables with food and drinks. Thank you for the dance. That was an interesting experience. You're very welcome. I suddenly started darting around, as if she felt uncomfortable in my presence. Sorry, Nick, I need to take off for a bit. Unfortunately, I have my own obligations at this Vanity Fair. Yeah, of course. It's past midnight. The magic is gonna wear off. Oh no! She smiled and approached the group of young women. I was left alone, surrounded by perfect strangers who didn't care one bit about me. I immediately grew anxious. My heart started beating faster, and I began to sweat. So what was I supposed to do? I darted across the hall in search of Natalia. She was casually talking with other guests and probably wasn't watching me. Of course, I could always tell Ellie everything and hope for Kobayashi Jun's protection. He probably wouldn't be happy, but there was still a chance that he'd help. Otherwise, he would have dealt with me like Irina had with Kagome. But the mere thought of this all-powerful man made me tremble inside. I had no reason to trust Irina either, but at least she was Russian. She was one of my peoples. Even though I didn't always agree with the motivation behind her actions, I could still understand them. And what did Ellie's grandfather want? Money, power, even more money? And most importantly, what kind of protection could he provide? Would he bring me to a remote Japanese village and have me live in a dilapidated hut with Kagimaru? With a well kilometer away, no decent heating in winter, and of course, no bathroom. That didn't sound like an attractive prospect. On the other hand, if I were Irina, I'd get rid of the unnecessary witness once I had
all the photos.
All our talk about patriotism applied only to the domain of ideals, not individual people. We strive for the betterment of the country as a whole, for the prosperity of the people. If a small part of the people suffered because of that, that's an acceptable loss. And most crucially, Irina had never even much tried to hide the fact that those were her morals. I wasn't one to compare socialism and capitalism, but at the moment I felt like I'd been thrust into the middle of their struggle. And real people with real feelings were willing to choke each other to death for the sake of those, ideas. Tiger or dragon, which one do I trust? Once when I was little I had a fairy tale about how these two creatures didn't get along with each other. In that tale the solution was discovered fairly quickly, to connect the tails of the dragon and the tiger so that they'd be forced to find mutual understanding. But in reality, the symbiosis of two separate political and economic systems didn't seem like a good idea to me. And it wasn't easy to tell which one was which at a glance, but returning from the abstract to the concrete, I decided to make a choice between the tiger and the dragon. Oh. The choice is... Seek protection from Kobayashi Jun. Okay. No, in Japan, Kobayashi Jun had more power, and the risk was unbelievably high. Now, with so many strangers in his home, anything of value would be guarded even more closely than usual. I didn't know why Irina had sent me here, but standing in the middle of this motley crowd, I was absolutely sure that I wouldn't be able to complete the mission unnoticed. There was one more dilemma left. Did I have the right to trust the person guilty of my parents' death? Even if his guilt was unproven, the suspicion alone was enough. You wouldn't invite a guy who used to work as an accountant at Auschwitz for tea, even if the Nuremberg trials had found he had nothing to do with the mass murders. But at this point my life was on the line, and the options I had available to me were much more limited. There were any other alternative, but I had no confidence in Irina's moral qualities either. I had convinced myself that I was jumping to conclusions that I couldn't accuse Kobayashi Jun of crimes against humanity just because he was rich and powerful. Who was I to judge? When your life is at stake, the list of things you find acceptable tends to expand tremendously. Still, all the excuses very much resemble the indulgence of a collaborator. Took at least a half hour for Ellie to find time for me again. After those girls, she managed to talk to a whole lot of other people. Why the long face, Nick? Is it that obvious? On the backdrop of everyone else? Of course it is. Indeed, there was an atmosphere of celebration all around me. I need to have a serious talk with you. All right. She looked at me puzzled. Not here. We walked outside. The night's chill felt refreshing to me, while Ellie shivered and wrapped her arms around herself. If I had a jacket, I'd share. Ah, the jacket. Yeah, I forgot about it. Sorry, it's in my room. I'll be right back. I can wait. I'm not poor enough to have to wear the same clothes year-round. The remark about the jacket somewhat distracted me, and it took considerable effort to get my thoughts back on the track that actually mattered. Ellie, I want you to listen to me very carefully and not interrupt. All right. She nodded seriously in response. So much has happened in my life in the past 2 weeks that it would take too long to explain it all, but I don't need to. What matters is that I was contacted by Soviet spies. I don't know what they need from me. It's somehow related to my parents' work in your grandfather's company, and also our acquaintance. I raised my hand as a warning, but Ellie wasn't about to interrupt me. I understand what you might think, that I tried to befriend you because I had a hidden agenda, and anyway, none of it is true. Well, partially it was true. I did get myself invited to the ball for a reason. Nick, I realize this is serious, but what's your point? I sighed heavily and continued. In the end, that woman from the KGB ordered me to sneak into your grandfather's office and take some photos of his documents. One sec. I took the mini camera out of my pocket and handed it to Ellie. The girl fidgeted with it in her hands and gave it back. I swear, I have no idea what's in those documents. For some time, Ellie looked at me like I was a teacher, explaining some incredibly complex materials that was going to be on the final exam. But I've decided I can't do it, because... I stumbled. To be honest, right now I'm more afraid of your grandfather than the KGB. I understand. I waited for her to continue, but she just kept giving me the seemingly captivated stare. What do you understand? I understand that you're in a difficult situation, but Nick, the KGB is some serious stuff. You need to go to the police. Will they help? I smirked sarcastically. But if not the police, who then? Your grandfather, I'm telling you. Sure, I can talk to Grandpa, but what? Fine, nothing. She suddenly smiled and lit up. Wait a moment, I'll be quick. And she ran away, leaving me to freeze on the veranda. I didn't want to think her reaction was out of indifference. I was even less inclined to think she was a little stupid. Rude. But Ellie clearly didn't entirely comprehend the seriousness of the situation. She probably understood in general terms that I was in a difficult situation, but not the actual grave danger that came with it. Telling her about problems I had at school would probably have the same reaction. And then that seemed weird. To what extent is a person who lives in luxury, who has never faced any serious obstacles in their life, able to sympathize with the common people? Maybe that's what I hadn't noticed in her face. Compassion. The automatic reaction of offering help isn't enough. Often there are situations where there's no help to be given other than sympathy and a kind word. While I was waiting for Ellie's return, 2 servants carried dead, drunk Victor out of the house and past me as he unintelligibly recited some poems. Natalia followed him and apologized to everyone she met. In order not to attract unnecessary attention, I prudently hid behind a column. I had to thank Michael, or maybe my own common sense, for not going too hard on the champagne. I needed a clear head for the talk with Kobayashi-Jun. I didn't know how much time had passed, but when Ellie finally appeared, accompanied by her grandfather, I almost froze to death. And the old man noticed that right away. Good evening, Nikolai. I think we'd better talk inside. I gladly followed him. Ho ho. We returned to the house and walked up the stairs to the 2nd floor. Elizabeth, leave us. But she was about to object, but then lowered her head obediently. As you say, grandfather. Are we in trouble, Mafia? Are we dead? When Ellie had left, Kobayashi-Jun leaned against the railing and looked out benevolently at the people dancing below. It's a wonderful evening for dancing, don't you think, Nikolai? Yes, I suppose. I had no idea how this evening was different from any other. Maybe we're dead. We'll see. To be honest with you, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon. If you're talking about me agreeing to play in Ellie's band, no, not at all. What nonsense. He turned to me and smiled approvingly. Moreover, I'm glad that she's now had such a serious and responsible friend. Its words seemed strange, especially considering our previous conversation, but I knew well that Kobayashi-Jun never said anything without a reason. Thank you for thinking so highly of me. Now what did you want to talk about? Elizabeth said it was something of great importance. I gathered my courage and started. Kobayashi-sama, some time ago I was contacted by people from Soviet intelligence, to be more precise, by Major Irina Mostovaya. He was listening to me with an unreadable expression on his face, and she demanded that I steal some documents from you tonight. Some documents? He finally asked. Certain documents, I swear. I have no idea what's in them. I only know that there should be a logo on them, the Earth surrounded by rings. Irina also gave me a camera. Here. I took the mini camera out of my pocket and showed it to the old man, but he expressed no interest in it. I understand. This is very interesting. I don't know Miss Mostovaya personally, but I have heard that she's a capable young woman. Couldn't argue with that, but I said nothing out loud. As I understand, Nikolai, you decided not to collaborate with her? Yes. Why? Why? I asked, puzzled. Some questions tend to confuse you with how inappropriate they are. And though there's only one answer to the question, why is the sky blue? Even if not everybody knows it, in my case there was a choice. I really could have tried to find the documents, but in the end I trusted my gut on which was the lesser of two evils. I don't think she can be trusted. For a moment his face became tense. Apparently Ellie's grandfather was thinking carefully about what he was going to say. Does that mean you trust me? Let's see. Looks like I had no other option. Darn. Do I have a choice here? I blurted out in response. I'm glad you're sincere with me. He smiled and gave me a pat on the back. He made me freeze, shrink away, an electrical impulse shooting up in my spine. Don't worry about a thing. I'll handle it. But these people will do you no harm. But Kobayashi-sama, with all due respect, I'd like to know what to do next, how to deal with her. Next time, if there will be a next time, you'll have to tell her that you will not work for her. Let me check something real quick. Give me a second. Okay, all's good. We good, folks. Will she really accept that? I scoffed sadly. I will bring it to the attention of the right people that you're under my protection. She won't have a choice. His words were surprisingly similar to Irina's promises and about the KGB protecting me. The creation of imaginary threats and promises of protection have been the main weapons of skilled manipulators throughout history. On the other hand, what did I expect? A personal squad of bodyguards? It's very generous of you. Of course. Suddenly smiled wide. I can do no less for a young man who is trusted by my granddaughter. You see, Elizabeth might be wayward, but common sense has always been her strong suit. I see. Although considering everything, I wasn't so sure about Ellie's common sense. Maybe even Kobayashi Jun was no stranger to human follies and, just like any other grandfather, doted on his granddaughter. Don't worry about a thing, Nikolai. Now go. The evening is for you. The young, talk, dance, enjoy life. This isn't my voice, I'm just using this voice, by the way. Meanwhile, I'll make all the necessary arrangements. I lingered for several seconds, but didn't know what else to say. Then if I may... I searched for Ellie as I slowly walked down the stairs. Other circumstances, I would have never trusted that sly old man, but now it was about his granddaughter. Even if not entirely, she didn't know all the details, but she still understood that I was in some trouble and needed her grandfather's help. And now if something were to happen to me, although I wasn't overestimating how important I was to Ellie and the potential pain she'd feel from my loss, maybe the old man thought she'd get over my disappearance just the same way she'd gotten over breaking her favorite toy when she was little. Those thoughts made my head spin, and I had to lean on the railing. And then why that show? If I was a potential threat, wouldn't it be easy to order Kagemaru to quickly take me outside and bury me somewhere in the forest behind the house? After all, nobody needs unnecessary witnesses. With every minute, I understood less and less, but I knew one thing for sure. I really didn't want to go home, where Irina could be waiting for me. Finally found Ellie and walked over to her. Here I am. Had your talk? She suddenly frowned. Nick, you look like you just found out you only got a couple weeks left to live. Maybe I do. Seriously? If Grandpa said something wrong, No, everything's alright. He was very nice and helped me a lot. Well, promised to help. You weren't saying that just to be polite, right? Me? Polite? Never. Just sounds so much like my grandfather. She sighed and looked up at the now empty balcony. All my friends are scared of him. I can't imagine why. But a weak-willed person wouldn't achieve what he has. Nobody says that. He's just protecting me. I know it might seem like too much sometimes, but that's just how he is. It's always good to have someone who cares about you. You're saying it like... Hang on a minute. Well, yeah, I don't have anyone, except Himitsu, and even she had run away. That's very sad. Sometimes Ellie was virtually exploding with emotion, but other times she seemed inexplicably callous. Like she couldn't find the right words to express sympathy. We're Sid gonna get used to anything. But I guess even if some people leave us, it doesn't mean we'll always be alone. Soon you might meet someone else, someone following the same path as you. Theoretically. I just mean, don't give in to despair. I won't. That's the spirit. Right. Ellie apparently didn't know how to continue with the conversation, and I didn't mind saying nothing. Let's dance a bit more, she finally asked. Let's. I shrugged and offered her a hand. We're dancing again. The second time, dancing wasn't nearly as embarrassing or confusing. We were swirling in the middle of the hall, and I was holding up far more confidently than before. So are you going to tell me what you and Grandpa talked about? Ellie's question was fair. Anyone would ask the same in her place. But I didn't know whether to tell her the truth. She could look calm one second and explode and do something stupid the next. At that moment, most of all, I wanted to forget that Irina might already be waiting for me at home, ready to demand an explanation. Ellie looked at me inquisitively, and I was about to say something, but I was faster. Hadn't I told you that you look beautiful today? If not for you, I don't even know where I would be. You and the guys in the band, of course. You guys are exactly what I need now. Is that related to what you were talking about with my grandfather? Yes, partially. Sometimes it feels like you're just using me. Ellie smirked without a hint of anger, but the sorrow in her eyes was unmistakable. Then I realized I had to do something immediately. I couldn't just drift along. In this moment, Ellie really was charmingly alluring, but the longer I twisted and turned, trying to hide the truth from her, the more suspicious she became. It was even important when she suspected me of exactly having an agenda behind my interactions with her or something else. Problem was losing her trust. Right now, she was the only link connecting me to Kobayashi Jun. There was no reason to believe she'd offered me protection for any other reason. And although I didn't entirely understand the old man's behavior, I had to act on the assumption that had the highest chance of being true. In the end, when you're running away from a lion in the savannah, whether you'll contact malaria is the last thing you worry about. Oh! In the end, I did what seemed to be the only logical thing in the situation. I kissed Ellie! She didn't understand right away what was happening, but then timidly responded to the kiss. Smooch! She said. Her lips were softer than I could ever imagine. Could it be your first time? Strangely, none of the guests paid attention to us. They didn't care at all for what anyone else excited by the merriment and the champagne was doing. Finally, they pulled away from Ellie. You jerk! She slapped me on the face. I was knocked out. If I am, then only for this. Nick, I wasn't ready. The element of surprise is the entire point. Are you serious about all of this? Of course. I like you. I just like you. And if you're thinking about Catherine or Himitsu, no! The dance was over and we walked to the least crowded hall. I don't care about the past. You know, Ellie livened up, raising at me, her eyes full of visceral hope. I think I fell in love with you right away, from first sight. God, what am I talking about? She immediately blushed and lowered her eyes. What's so special about me? I was surprised but noted that deep inside I had a suspicion about her feelings. You speak so beautifully, and if you had to hear me talk, that's not first glance. Oh, come on, that doesn't matter. Ellie came close and raised her head, apparently waiting for my reaction. I kissed her again, this time very briefly. I don't think it'd be right if your grandfather saw us. He's already locked up in his office, talking about business with someone. I'm sure he has eyes and ears all around the place. And I have nothing to be ashamed of. Nor do I. It's just, after our talk today... Yeah, by the way, I sealed her lips with another kiss, long and passionate. Kissed her twice! When we finally let each other go, Ellie turned all red, a strand of her hair a little out of place. Didn't expect it'd be so. So, what? This. Needed to go to the ladies' room. You know, I should probably go. I need be home. I need be home. I quickly looked at the clock. Before midnight. Yes, before midnight. Somebody waiting for you there? No, it's just I need to. Trust me. I'll explain everything later. All right. Ellie agreed reluctantly and took my hand. See you tomorrow, then? See you tomorrow. And we kissed goodbye. A third kiss! Hell yeah. The moment I got into the taxi, I felt extremely tired. And the entire trip back from Kobayashi's estate blended into a single dance of light beyond the car's shadow window. Alright, I want to check something real quick. Want to see how far along I am. So give me a second, mother flippers. Oh boy. I think there's something unpleasant coming up, guys. Okay, here we go. Fortunately, my home greeted me with its usual silence, and for once, I was happy to hear it. I still had to comprehend and reflect on everything that had happened to me, but that would come later. At that moment, I had only one desire, one necessity: to sleep. Yep. Something's coming, Mafia babe. Do you know what's coming? Something's arriving that's very unpleasant. Are you ready? Hey, Hiyori, what's up? You're just in time for something very, very unpleasant. It is... the Wall of Text! Dun 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 dun! A week has passed. Relationship with Ellie was developing rapidly. Again, I'm gonna read this to myself. It's a lot of dialogue, and I am good. Stating it more importantly, Irina never threatened to take revenge. Irina killed me the next day. Kagomi's released from jail. But who did it? Who did the murders of the peoples then, huh? do 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 do. Ba-do-do-do-do. Grandfather. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes. Band practice continued. Good. I like band practice. Do you like band practice? Catherine stopped going. Catherine's gone. Bye, Catherine. Oh, it's a lot today. It's a lot right now. Holy crap. There's a lot of flippin' dialogue. Limes and lemons are different. Thank you for letting me know that, game. That was very important to add in. Didn't cause the first part of the stream what happened. We attended a ball. A lovely ball with Ellie, Hiyori. It was great. We danced. We kissed. We got protection from her grandfather. It was great. And no one died. Right? No one died, right? Monday. Ellie woke me up early so he wouldn't be late for school, but to my standards, she overdone it by an hour, which meant there was still enough time to make breakfast, even if I hadn't had enough sleep. Oh my gosh. I like watching you cook. I just like to watch you guys. Ellie was sitting wrapped up in my shirt while her feet on the chair. There are 3 things you can watch forever: fire burning, water falling, and other people working. Technically, you can't watch fire forever because it'll go out eventually. I know, just so much cuteness. Was waiting for this plot worth it, Mafia babe? The Ellie route. She didn't respond and kept watching my every movement with the same dreamy expression. I can't really cook, you will see. I'm nothing like, heck yeah. Heck yeah! We need more rock and roll though. Where's all the drums and the guitars and stuff? Remembered Himitsu, but there was no point in talking about her. Not only because I was worried Ellie would get jealous. The cook's on TV. Speaking of which, I really did like the cooking shows, even if I never tried to make anything I saw in there. I didn't even know why I was so attracted by them. I'm sure you'll do great. How's your grandfather? I asked casually. Same as usual. Usual? Nick, is there something you wanted to say? Then say it. Something I want to say. Was it the time to be straight with her? I'm worried about you. Your friends died just recently, and you haven't even had time to mourn them. Indeed, from outside, you might think Ellie wasn't even that worried in the first place. But once I got to know her better, I realized that wasn't the case. She just tried to seem strong in any situation. I couldn't quite understand what she had to keep her emotions to herself, and when she could let them out. I feel sorry about Miku and Marie, she said after a small pause. But I didn't know the others that well. And still, of course, you're right. She lowered her head and sighed. Do you think I'm an emotionless bird? If I did, you'd taste arsenic in your coffee. Ellie smiled, mostly out of politeness. And indeed, I now had a can of coffee in my drawer, as well as a new comb in my bathroom and groceries in my fridge. One day a man in a black suit just rang the doorbell and handed me a bag with all that stuff. In love, just like anything else, Ellie wasn't looking for compromise, and sometimes that was scary. What does arsenic taste like? If I knew, we wouldn't be talking right now. Only the sound of eggs sizzling in the pan broke the uncomfortable silence in the kitchen. Silence was lasting for too long, but I was doing my best not to break it first. Do you think there's something wrong with me? Ellie finally asked in a voice that sounded like she had long accepted a terminal illness, and was asking the doctor how much she had left. Wrong how? Wrong in how I act. I should probably leave. We're about to eat and leave school. For school. Together for school, rather. I responded, pretending I didn't understand what she was talking about. Are you tired of me? Why would you even think that? Stupid. Because sometimes I feel like you're too tense around me. Well, maybe I am. I replied quickly, flipping the eggs, and continued. You're too good for me. I wish. Ellie laughed. When I'm with you, I don't want to ever go back to that huge house. I don't care what others expect of me. You don't mind if I move in, do you? No, I don't. I barely forced out. What else could I say? That I did? That answer could put an end to our relationship all on its own. Whatever. It's all just silly talk. Who would allow me to do that? Oh, it's nice to dream sometimes. We're going to graduate in half a year. I said, cutting vegetables. I couldn't make the pieces and all equally thick, and that was irritating me immensely. And what next? I need to go to a university. I guess, is that a bad thing? I don't know. I just can't imagine myself in the world my grandfather lives in. It's hard to even be in his office, as if I can't breathe there. I could understand her feelings, but I didn't say that out loud. How can I put it? All those people there. If they had a choice, would they have agreed to work a job like that on their own? What's bad about their jobs? Sitting at a desk the whole day, moving papers from one pile to another, and staring at a screen? What's good about that? People can't all be artists. Somebody has to do that too. My words sounded fake, at least to myself, but I understand clearly that I couldn't go along with her here. It was like agreeing to stay up partying with unemployed friends when you had to go to work at 7 in the morning while they could sleep until noon. Yeah, I got that, but the thought gives me chills. I doubt you'll have to sit through like that and organize papers. You mean Grandpa will make me a vice president or something right away? I didn't reply, but it didn't seem like Ellie expected me to answer. How's that better? Loads of responsibility and even less free time. When are you supposed to live? Now. I wanted to finish the conversation as soon as possible. Well, if you insist. The food's ready. Do stuff yourself. How rude. It's from a Soviet film. I think we could probably find a tape of it. Would you want to watch it together later? You bet. We are now going to school. Everyone's favorite place to go, am I right? Ha 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 ha. Alright, give me a second real quick. Okay, good to go. We were walking to school using the same route I used to go with Himitsu for years. Ellie took me by the arm, which only strengthened my cognitive dissonance. I didn't know how I was supposed to act and moved and mostly kept quiet. It seemed that initiating a pointless conversation about nothing with Ellie wasn't the best idea, but she herself never went quiet for a second, constantly talking about school, music, telling me about her plans for the upcoming concert. And occasionally, I would forget who was walking by my side and saw her as a normal girl. But once bitten, twice shy, I held back and forced myself to always be on guard. Once bitten and twice shy. I had no idea what the future held, but for now I had to preserve this relationship and act in whatever way kept Ellie pleased. Nobody discussed our romance in public. They were probably just too scared to. Naturally, there's plenty of talk behind our backs, but that wasn't surprising. High schoolers don't need much of a reason to gossip. Yet there was more straightforward person to be found within the walls of the school. I stumbled upon Takehito Toko at the lockers. Who the heck is this person? She was in the same class as Ellie, but you wouldn't call them good friends. Kobayashi-san, Anokins-kun. She greeted us coldly. Toko-san? You're together very early in the morning, she remarked, looking at us reproachfully. I could never understand the Japanese saying about morning. Would we look different in the afternoon or evening? Are you surprised by that? Don't think that I'm the only one who is. That's the first time I'm hearing about it. Ellie dramatically flung her hands up in the air, and her affection was a bit overblown in my opinion. If you don't see a problem with this yourself, I don't. Kobayashi-san, you've changed a lot lately, and I can't say that it's been for the better. Yeah? I wonder who decides how I should act. Ellie, maybe we shouldn't, whispered timidly, but she was already out of control. Ellie probably hadn't failed to notice the disapproving looks from the girls or the open envy of the guys. She couldn't not hear her classmates whispering behind her backs. And Takehito-san's words were just the straw to break the camel's back. On the other hand, it wasn't hard for Ellie to understand Ellie's feelings. We were not the first and only couple in this school, and for whatever reason the others didn't get this kind of attention. So summon us for a meeting with the disciplinary committee. Is there a reason I should? Oh, Mafia babe, are you excited for her route, by the way? Toko's? Oh, it's gonna be great. She seems like a fun person to hang out with. Am I right? She parried cautiously. Takehito was also the head of that institution, the one I personally found very confusing. Anytime, Toko-san. Ali straightened up and glared at the school inquisitor, as some called Takehito, behind her back with fire in her eyes. Kobayashi-san, I'm not your enemy. I'm just trying to explain that the school had certain norms. How do you like this? Ali exclaimed, grabbing me by the lapels, pulling me in, and seized my lips with a passionate kiss. I didn't have time to react. I just froze in an unnatural pose with my eyes wide open, staring at Takehito. Oh, we're showing her what's what, am I right? Ali's stunt seemed to have been no less of a shock to her. I felt surprised, embarrassed, and burning shame in sequence. But Ali didn't care. She acted like we were alone at my place. Maybe even more passionately in a way. Finally, I gently but firmly pushed her away, but Ellie paid no attention to that and immediately turned to Takehito. How do you like that, huh? Toko-san? The latter just sighed deeply in response, and if she was utterly disappointed in someone she used to treat with great respect. I have nothing else to say, Kobayashi-san. Just remember, it might be too late when you finally come to your senses. Having said that, she left. I was relieved to note that nobody else seemed to have seen Ellie's escapade. How would you do that? I snapped at her as soon as Takehito walked away. I know. Ellie's great, isn't she? What? Did I fluster you too? Embarrass much? Ellie smirked and glared angrily at me, almost like she had with it at Toko. Why do you always need to jump to extremes? Does it have to be either puritanism or debauchery? So you think I'm debauched? I don't. Actions don't always define who we are, especially when we do what we do when we're emotional. You just need to, I don't know, be more careful in some situations. I didn't expect to hear that from you, Nick, from anyone else, but not from you. Any reasonable person in my place would react the same, except some would keep their mouths shut. Reasonable. Ellie frowned, then suddenly lowered her eyes, wrapped her arms around herself, and even seemed to become smaller. I love you, Nick. Don't you love me? I love you too. I had to make quite an effort to make out the words sound genuine, but Takehito isn't preventing us from loving each other. She's talking about... Indeed, what did the school inquisitor want from us? Until now, we hadn't been kissing each other in public. I hadn't been holding hands on school grounds. What else could there be? Were we supposed to keep several meters away from each other? It's all just pointless conventions. Maybe you're right. I guess I can even agree with you. Just, you didn't have to jump on me in front of everyone like that. Nobody saw us. But they could have. Are you that worried about it? It's weird you aren't. Now you're talking like Toko. Because she was right. Because the truth is impartial. Trying to make it sound like a joke. Fine, maybe you're right. I overdid it a bit. Sorry! I didn't expect her to agree with me, so I didn't know how to react. See you later then. Yeah. Ellie walked to her classroom while I spent a while standing at the lockers, thinking about what had just happened. I was completely stunned. Give me a second, lads. Okay. We're good to go. We're making very good progress in this story right now. Kagome was acting as if nothing had happened at all, but the reaction to her quickly to return was quite predictable. People avoided Iwamura like a leper. If before she had only been talked out of necessity, now she was just outright ignored. By the teachers, too. Although Kagome didn't seem to be bothered by it. She would come to a lesson, take notes in her notebook, then leave after the bell, probably for the roof. She'd be forgiven for being surprised that her issue with the police had been resolved so quickly. But Kobayashi Jun's influence could be clearly felt here, and he wasn't known for dragging his heels. Of course, I was glad justice had finally prevailed, but in every other respect the situation felt abnormal. She at least could have changed schools. It was even weirder that as soon as Kagome had been released, her father was found. Just a quest. What should I do when it comes to bans or block time out, Ultima? Huh? What are you talking about, Hiyori? You don't have to do anything, Hiyori. It's Mafia that has to do it. He didn't know anything useful about who had kidnapped him or what they wanted from him. Akira Shinji spent the entire time in a dark cellar without once being interrogated or asked anything. That was clearly the corporation's good doing too. But for the life of me, I couldn't thread together all the events that had happened in the past 2 weeks. Correlations were neatly disguised as true causes, and those in turn had so many incoming and outgoing connections that the average person could never hope to understand it at all. The web it all weaved was enormous. What should I do when it comes to bans or block time out in a stream? Nothing, Hiyori. Just enjoy the stream. Leave it to the mods. As much as I wanted to figure it out, I was busy spending all my time with Ellie. During lunch, she stormed into the classroom looking like a SWAT team assaulting a crack house, as if the wild kiss in front of Takehito a couple hours earlier had never happened. Nick, let's go eat. There was nothing wrong with the invitation to lunch itself, but Ellie's insistence and cheerfulness were a little out of line with local decency. Everyone in the classroom was giving us discreet and not so discreet looks. Of course, by now they were somewhat used to Ellie-sama's daily visits, but I still felt like I was in a cage at the zoo. Naked. Oh god, I don't want to be that. I really felt like I needed a break from all the attention, even Ellie's. At the same time, I was afraid that rejecting her offer would cause her to get emotional again. Oh, okay. Important. Agree? Accept decline. Oh, I think we decline here. Screw you, Ellie. I'm declining. I mean, I'd love to, but I already desperately looked around the classroom for support. Already agreed to go with Kyosuke. You're fine for now. I don't know what you're asking, Hiyori. Sorry. I said that much louder than I had to, and my chubby friend looked over at us surprised. But a small nod only the two of us would understand did the trick. Yes, Kobayashi-san, I already said I'd go with Nick. He slowly approached us and carefully stood next to me, shifting from one foot to another. Is that so? Ellie said disappointingly and took a bag with a beautiful ornament depicting flying cranes from behind her back. Enjoy your meal then. And she casually put the bag on my desk. And don't forget that we got stuff to do. See you in the yard after class. Alright. After Ellie walked out of the classroom, Kyosuke sighed with such relief you'd think he'd just found out his cancer diagnosis turned out to be a false positive. Nick, seriously, you'll give me a stroke one day. You'll give one yourself if you keep eating garbage. Went at the bag of chips he was holding in his hand, and took 2 marvelously crafted bento boxes out of the bag. Sorry, let me check one more thing real quick. I'm just investigating, don't mind me. Ah, crud. Here, have some delicacies as an apology. I gave one to Kyosuke. Damn. His eyes bulged out as soon as he opened the box, like he discovered an ancient treasure. To be honest, I was always jealous that Himitsu-chan cooked for you every day, but this is a whole nother level. God, Ellie can't cook. She must have asked her chef. I scoffed. The way people put Ellie on a pedestal had seemed strange to me, even before, but now that sort of reaction to anything she did got on my nerves. There was nothing extraordinary about the girl, let alone unique. Nothing to generally admire. Yes, Ellie had her good points, but she wasn't the only confident, beautiful heir to a multi-million corporation in the world. Nick, I think you don't realize how lucky you are. And while most of my classmates looked at me with what disapproval at the very least, Kyosuke, when he found out I was dating Ellie, had become extremely excited, bordering on maniac. It's Ellie-sama, friend. Ellie-sama. I couldn't even dream of her ever talking to me. And now thanks to you it's become possible. Uh-huh, whatever you say. I grumbled and also opened my bento. Yes, it was all very tasty, on a completely different level from Himitsu's cooking. Although a lunch like this seemed a bit much, normal food was just fine by me. I wonder what you did to deserve all that. To be honest, I never given much thought as to why Ellie chose me of all people. Her actions mostly followed her heart, so to say, and were rarely based on logic, and the heart of a beauty is well known. Wasn't worried so much about why Ellie was interested in me, but the consequences of it. Don't you think there are difficult moments in a relationship? In a relationship, maybe. In a relationship with Ellie-sama, no. Unless you screw it up yourself. I sighed heavily and focused on the bento. Although naturally, Kyosuke didn't know everything that had happened to me, and he didn't know why Ellie the way I did. When every guy envies you and wants you dead, and every girl judges you, thinking you're a mix between a maniac and a hypnotist? What? Kyosuke asked, causing crumbs to fly everywhere out of his mouth. Chew first, speak second. He carelessly wiped his mouth with the sleeve of his jacket and continued, "So you think it's better to vegetate alone? But I never wanted to be famous, especially not like this, when literally everyone in this damn school is staring daggers at you. Nick, I'd sympathize with you, but I can't." "Oh, you can't? Think about it." His face suddenly became serious. "I really can't stand normal guys. I tolerated your relationship with Himitsu-chan and Catherine-san because we're friends. Ellie-sama is another thing entirely. I'm not going to be the one to set a fire under the stake you've tied yourself to. But the wood is dry, and the crowd is bored and wants a spectacle. How poetic. Didn't expect that from my best friend." Yosuke frowned for a moment and then burst out laughing so loudly that I finally realized he was joking. "Gotcha. Well, seriously, Nick, you should have seen your face." "Fine enough already," I grumbled, feeling the blood rush to my face. "Even if I don't understand what kind of heavenly lottery you had to win to get the best girl in school, no, Japan, I'm happy for you." I could see a shadow of regret on his face for a moment. Maybe Kyosuke wasn't 100% sincere after all. Grateful to him, he tried. "Nick, have you got a minute?" Michael, who had been shooting impatient glances at me for some time now, approached us. "Take a seat. Minute alone, I mean." "Kyosuke, do you mind?" Kyosuke doesn't mind. He grumbled. "What about the box?" "Yes," he asked, already several steps away from us. "Keep it. Kobayashi Corporation can eat the loss." "So what do you want to talk about?" Yes, when Kyosuke returned to his desk. "Catherine." "Right, Catherine. What else could it be? She okay?" Talking in an even more emotionless voice than normal. "Hasn't she told you anything?" "Hasn't told me about what?" "About coming back to the U.S.? She's going back so soon as she just came to Japan?" Finally frowned. "Not Katya's personal secretary, just telling you what I heard from her." "So you two talked? Were we not meant to?" Michael looked at me as if I was someone he was seeing for the first time. What? Catherine's not my problem anymore. Stop being my problem. Is that so? So it is. Well, I see. Finishing a dull and pointless conversation. Thank you for letting me know. I don't care about your relationship with Catherine, Michael. Sorry. My right impression. Class wasn't over pretty soon, which meant I was going to be at Ellie's full disposal for the rest of the day. Couldn't say I'd managed to get tired of her in only a week, but deep inside I felt I needed some more time alone. I was standing at the gate, occasionally catching unfriendly glances from students as they passed by. God, it felt like I'd been put up on... I feel like I'd been put up on a wanted poster somewhere. Take Takehito. She looked at me, stopped for a second as if remembering something, and then strode away. Oh, I can't wait to be with her. She's gonna be awesome. Right? She's gonna be the coolest person ever. Alright, give me a second. I think we're fine, maybe. Looked at the clock. Kelly was late. "Are you waiting for Ojo-sama?" I heard a familiar voice behind my back. I immediately straightened up and turned around. It was Kagemaru! Well, yeah. I replied unsurely, as if confessing something shameful. "You'll see her later. Let's go for a ride." "To where?" "Kobayashi Dono wants to see you." I hardly had a choice, so I followed him to the car. Uh-oh. I'm gonna die again, Mafia babe. Yay! The clear sunny day felt very different in Kobayashi Jun's office, so close to the sun. Down there, Tokyo was drowning in a furious sea of lights, while you watched all that interplay of white and yellow, enjoying the cool air inside the office, like you were looking out of a spaceship. "Come in, Nikolai. Take a seat," the old man said, and I could hear something like weariness or irritation in his voice. Apparently it was going to be a serious conversation. I slowly sat down in the armchair opposite to him, crossed my legs, but immediately felt that I wasn't comfortable sitting like that, and I straightened my back unnaturally, and put my hands on my knees. "Relax, Nikolai. All the worst is already past." I was about to ask him what he was talking about on autopilot, but restrained myself. In any case, Ellie's grandfather looked far less friendly today, even if that friendliness had always been feigned. Has Elizabeth told you anything about her parents? Only that they are no longer with us. I replied carefully. Yes, I suppose it isn't the most pleasant topic for her, and under different circumstances we would never be discussing it now, but... He sighed heavily and closed his eyes. At the end of the 60s, Elizabeth's mother, my daughter, met a French musician who came to Japan on tour. It was a very different time, in our country as well as in the West. Even though the young rebelled against the traditions, the laws, and the rules, both then and now. But at that time it felt new. The student strikes, the clashes with the police, the assault on Tokyo University looked wild to my generation, and I couldn't approve of my daughter's relationship. You must understand. He arched his eyebrows and as if apologizing to me. Yumiko was just as wayward as Elizabeth, perhaps even more so. I'm not denying my responsibility for what happened back then, not in the slightest. One way or another, Yumiko fled with Elizabeth's father to France. He remained silent for a while, giving me an intense look. Kobayashi-san, I didn't know. Of course you didn't, but you do now, though it's not the end of the journey. Naturally, I couldn't give up on my daughter and leave her without any help. At that time, I didn't possess the resources I do now, but I still managed to keep track of her life. And the life she led there, let me put this away, it definitely wasn't what a father would wish for his daughter. I was familiar enough with the music and musicians of the 60s to understand what he was talking about. Soon after Elizabeth was born, her parents died in a car accident. Her father got behind the wheel, drunk after a concert. Fortunately, they had the mind to leave their daughter home. He grinned sadly. After Yumiko's death, I had to use every resource at my disposal to bring Ellie back to Japan. Believe me, Nikolai, it wasn't an easy task. I do. And now when Elizabeth is grown up, I'm watching her follow in her father's footsteps. He stood up, locking his hands behind his back when walking along the window. Yet she doesn't even remember him. She was 3 when they died. To be honest, I had a hunch that something tragic had happened to Ellie's parents, but I never imagined her father had been a musician. Did she inherit her passion for music and rebelliousness from him? Now you understand, Nikolai, why I'm doing everything I can to protect Elizabeth from the sinister consequences of this, hobby. I do. I agreed, although it wasn't a question. At the same time, I don't want to put too much pressure on her. I still blame myself for Yumiko's death. Kobayashi-jun was being honest beyond all measure, but I couldn't hear the sincerity in his voice you'd expect for someone genuinely repented for their actions. It all seemed rehearsed, just enough truth, spun the right way to achieve its purpose. But I had no doubt that deep inside he did mourn his daughter's death. Perhaps you've asked yourself the question, why do I allow Elizabeth such frivolous behavior? I mean her staying at your home almost every other night. Kobayashi-san, I started already prepared for the worst, but the old man raised his hand, stopping me. Wait, I haven't finished. It's not about you. She could have fallen in love with anybody and would act the same. I have to admit, you aren't the worst possible choice, but it changes nothing. So Nikolai, he frowned and I felt a shiver run down my spine. I don't know how long your relationship is going to last, but if it ends the same way most teenage romances do, I don't want Elizabeth to suffer. I never. And second, you must make sure her obsession with this gaijin music won't lead to irreparable consequences. I suddenly thought that I couldn't imagine him young, as if Kobayashi-jun had been born with a beard and in a kimono. Did you understand me, Nikolai? Hey, your schedules are Sunday to Friday, 5 p.m., Saturdays at 4 p.m., Monday to Thursday at 4:30. Your schedules are... What do you mean by that? Your schedules for what? For work? For school? For something else? Tell me, my friend, tell me. Even if his instructions were vague, they require no clarification. Except, do you want Ellie to stop playing music? No, unless it affects your studies. I understand. I knew I could count on you. He smiled for the first time in the conversation, walked to me and shook my hand. For post on your channel. Oh, gotcha. I see. Just let me know when you go live or whatever it is you do on that channel. Not very firmly, but not weakly either, putting us in just the strength the situation required. We'll be returned home. I'm going home! Woo! Awesome! Oops, hang on a minute. Give me a second. I think we're still good. Maybe still good. It's questionable. Kagemaro let me out of the car, once again confirming I understood Kobayashi Dono's words. Ultimately, that conversation was with the old man hadn't been any sort of revelation, but at the same time, now I understood the reason for Ellie's behavior was far deeper and more complex than I first assumed. And there Ellie was. The moment I took my key out of the pocket, she jumped out of the bushes where she had apparently been hiding so Kagemaro wouldn't see her. To be honest, I was about to get angry because you didn't wait for me, but I guess Grandpa is poking his nose where he shouldn't again. Jeez, don't scare me like that. I almost had a heart attack. Sorry. No, it's my fault. I should have warned you. I was offering mumbled excuses like I often used with Himitsu. Except this time, absolutely no fault lay with me. I saw Kakimaru bring you here. What did Grandpa want from you? Kobayashi Jun didn't tell me whether or not I could tell Ellie about our conversation. Did he forget? That was unlikely. Well, he's getting old. Let's get inside first. I closed the door with some relief and letting Ellie enter first. Your grandfather is just worried about you. And in the end, it was true. Any grandfather would act more or less like him in this place. The difference was Kobayashi Jun had far more effective means of persuasion at his disposal than the ramblings of an old man. If he had his way, I'd spend my days under lock and key. Oh, you're exaggerating. Still, what did he want from you? She frowned and stared at me intensely. You can't just ignore that, our relationship. I was having trouble finding the words to express myself without saying too much, and provoking yet another outburst from Ellie. Had nothing to do with him, and she exclaimed but immediately stopped herself, like a cocky young vice president stared down by his older colleagues at a board meeting. He didn't threaten you, did he? No, not at all. I started waving my hands. I didn't even have to lie about that, although a request from Kobayashi Jun was scarier than most people's threats. So then, what did he want? Ellie asked in a resigned voice and sat down on a chair. He told me about your parents. What? I mean, I wasn't going to hide it from you, just all in good time. I understand. What exactly did he tell you? Now, this was a question of where extreme caution was paramount. That they died in a car accident when you were little. Yes, same as your parents. She suddenly wrung her hands in desperation and looked at me as if I were a priest, expecting absolution. I didn't want you to pity me, like, we're just the same sort of thing. Nothing good ever comes of that. Searching for a partner on the basis of a similar emotional trauma is indeed a bad idea. But it also wasn't always possible to figure out what else is beyond pure emotions drove Ellie. Hundreds of thousands of people die in car accidents every year. Many have children, and not all of them are similar. Yes, but... Besides, I only became an orphan pretty recently, and you... See, here it goes. She interrupted me angrily. Just don't pity me. Didn't even think to. Ellie lowered her head, lost in thought. Yeah, I made a fool out of myself again. Created so much fuss about nothing. Your reaction is completely natural. Uh-huh, sure. It's hard for me to remember my parents, too. I wouldn't wish it on anyone to lose their loved ones. But I barely remember them. I still have some photos of me with my parents in France, but I don't remember where or when they were taken. How old were you? 3? That's completely understandable. Maybe, but is it fair? I mean, my mom used to constantly blame my grandpa for everything. Ellie smirked sadly. It's ironic. That's one thing I remember. I can't remember what exactly she blamed him for, but that doesn't matter now. Grandpa didn't approve of her relationship with my dad, so they had to flee to France. The word flee somewhat alarmed me. Of course, it was possible that she was just exaggerating. I don't know what exactly my grandpa didn't approve of, but I think it was about my father being a musician. So Kobayashi Jun hadn't told her about the circumstances of her parents' death. Consequently, it was better for me to not mention it either. Hey, Beamy! Beamy Gaming has arrived. How you doing today? How's life treating ya? And now he wants me to stop playing music too. Can you imagine that? I can. To an extent, I could even understand Kobayashi Jun. An unhappy but alive child is better than a happy and dead. He asks you to convince me to drop it, right? Well, doesn't matter. He does it to everyone. Ishida, Mitsuyoshi, and Tokyo Rider just didn't break under pressure. Is the game being serious? Maybe? I think it is. So they struck me as confident guys. A reason. Ellie, you should know I'm not afraid of him. I would never do something to hurt you. Of course, I wasn't fully honest. I was physically impossible not to be afraid of the head of Kobayashi Corporation, but that didn't mean that I would act out on that fear. On the other hand, my relationship with Ellie mostly started because I wanted her grandfather's protection. You're meh, not happy, not necessarily sad, so disappointed. What happened? Talk to me, my friend. What happened? Really? She opened her eyes wide and looked at me pleadingly. Of course, I love you. I walked to her and gave her an affectionate kiss. Naturally, by doing so, I was risking her becoming even more emotionally unstable. But in this situation, I didn't have any other choice. They won't leave me like my parents. She broke into tears and wrapped her arms around my neck. No, of course not. I felt a surge of tenderness, but her behavior was still a little scary. Ah! It took quite a long time for Ellie to finally calm down. She wiped her tears, her red eyes gleaming and looking at me with clear desire. But you were going to prepare for the concert, I said timidly. I'm always prepared. Can't say the same about myself. Nick, I think you need to relax. I understand perfectly that a conversation with my grandfather can be very unpleasant. She grabbed her school bag, went through it, and took out a small plastic bag. This will help. Is this what I think it is? Probably. Ellie smirked slyly. A wicked spark appeared in her eyes. But where did you get it? After what Kobayashi Jun had told me, after his request to not let Ellie follow the wrong path, I couldn't think of anything worse than this. Why are you grumbling like an old man? We're only going to have a little bit, just for a head start, and then we'll play. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. A lot was starting to make sense now. Ellie's frequent mood swings, emotional outbursts, even the sexual intensity. But I couldn't have never imagined the heir to Kobayashi Corporation turned out to be a drug addict. Ellie, I'm asking you seriously, where did you get this? Here we go again. I'll take it alone if you don't want to. I'm not underage by your country's laws. Ellie was about to open the bag, but I jumped to her and grabbed her arm. Nick, let me go. She protested, but didn't try to put my hand away. Do you know what this can lead to? You think alcohol is any better? It's not, but just don't moralize me at me. Jesus, I know my substances. And how long have you? I exhaled and let go of her hand. Enough to know there's no harm if you do it carefully. I didn't know what to do next. Take the bag away from her, throw its contents in the toilet, flush it, for tie Ellie to a chair and hand her over to Kagemaru? I would just stick to my guns and only push her away. And there was no reason to assume that she'd stop being a human being after a single hit. Just tell me honestly, all this time we've been together, have you been taking it? She smirked sadly. Well, yeah, once or twice. How the hell hadn't I guessed? Maybe her grandfather suspected something too, which is why he was so thorough with me. Yeah, this is not good. Rock music alone was hardly cause for so much concern. Ellie, God, I don't even know what to think. You disappointed with me? Should we break up? She asked with a weird defiance in her voice. No, of course not. It seemed like our relationship hung on a thin thread, covered with a thick layer of powder. Then will you keep me company? She again offered me the bag with a pleading look in her eyes. Obviously, Ellie caught me off guard, and I couldn't come up with a reasonable argument on the spot, so I could either keep proselytizing or offer her help. Well, obviously the right choice is refuse, right? Obviously the correct choice would be refuse. So I'm going to refuse, guys. That is the right choice. Oops. Oh, I did the wrong one. Naturally, I didn't want to become an addict, but I just decided it would be easier if we had some kind of solidarity. Just for a head start, no more than that. I couldn't say that the effect followed right away. 5 minutes later, I still didn't feel a thing. That's it? Yeah, what did I tell you? I mean, I feel nothing so far. Just wait a little longer. She giggled conspiratorially. Maybe I really did exaggerate the danger of it. Except how would I explain it to Kobayashi Jun if he found out? Let's go and rehearse then. At some point, the bass in my hand seemed to start playing itself. The strings vibrated so slowly that it was as if the world around me had frozen, and the sound from the amp felt voluminous, like it was embracing my entire being. Whoops, I took drugs. L nerd. I know, right? That was an L decision of mine. Am I right, guys? Ultima, what an L you are! And then the rhythm started to accelerate, as if somebody was continuously rotating the speed wheel on the drum machine. What's the hurry, Nick? Elisa suddenly stopped and laughed. I don't know. I breathed out and looked at my hands. I could feel unusual energy flowing all the way to my fingertips, and it seemed like right now I could play any part, no matter how complex it was. Ah, I see. She squinted predatorially. See what I was talking about now? Had that magic white powder been the secret ingredient to Ellie's talent this entire time? I still doubt that your grandfather would approve of this approach to music. But he doesn't need to know, does he? She put the guitar away, came to me, and sat on my knees. It's probably always like this in the beginning, and then my voice of reason was still shouting desperately somewhere on the edge of my consciousness, but it got quieter every second, like an echo in a deep cave. "It's fine, Nick," Ellie whispered in my ear, giving me a gentle kiss on the neck. Mwah! I was very much aware of what would follow and didn't want to resist. The rest of the day and almost the whole night was a fever dream full of sex and passion. Oh, God. Alright, any kids in the audience, cover your ears. And cover your eyes, too. And by morning, Ellie's bag had grown completely empty. Ha 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 ha. That's not good. It's October, by the way. Woke up covered in sweat with Ellie snuffling peacefully next to me. The innocent expression on her face made the memories of us going through the whole bag of powder seem like a terrible dream. The clock was saying 2-ish p.m., which meant we had successfully skipped school. Well, what started as spending the night at my place had now turned into truancy. I was methodically going against everything Kobayashi Jun wanted for me, driving into the abyss with the gas pedal pressed to the floor. And scariest of all that was that without me, Ellie would most likely have at least maintained the illusion of decency without tumbling into outright antisocial behavior. Carefully got up, trying not to wake her, and felt something weird, completely different from a hangover. Suddenly, my body became light, my legs turned to jelly, and I lost my balance. I snagged the guitar and letting out a displeased twang and fell to the side. Oh, God. She didn't open her eyes. Morning already? Yes, 2 o'clock. I muttered. I was starving last time doing a breakfast to death. Jumped out of the bed and started. The rehearsal. Do what you want, not going anywhere. Just make it quick. She frowned, turned up the button. Okay, get out of that. Get out of that. BRB. Alrighty, Mafia. The engine that usually powdered the rotor of my thought process seemed to have been stopped dead by something. Hang on a minute. Let's, move on a bit. This game is crazy, guys. This game is absolutely insane, ain't it? Whew, okay, moving on. Moving on. We were walking down the street and I couldn't focus on a single thought. Sometimes I felt as if I spent long minutes just moving my legs step after step on autopilot, not thinking about a thing. Alita looked a bit better, but also quite rough. You're back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Does every time feel like this? Well, she said, stared down at her feet, as if she was walking on ice. If you knew we had a group rehearsal today, why did you? It just happened. Oh, it just happened. Under different circumstances, I'd have picked my words more carefully to avoid upsetting her, but here it seemed meaningless. Just like how after a sleepless night, you don't care whether your tie matches your suit. Good thing Ellie's bodyguard hadn't come in to check whether we were still alive. I always had a feeling that they were somewhere close, watching the house. Well, what do you want me to say? They won't do it anymore? I knew how useless the promise would be. Every hangover I too would swear to myself that I'd never drink again. But I had to handle this quickly, even if not immediately. Just the thought that our bodyguards might notice the state where we were terrified me. My battered nervous system was starting to fail, and I felt myself starting to sweat intensely. Nick, are you alright? I don't know. What if it was a heart attack? I stopped, resting my head against a wall. My went got dark. My heart started aching. My heart started racing. My went got dark, guys. What does that mean? I felt like my chest was tied with a tight belt. Every breath took an enormous effort. I looked at my hands and couldn't understand what was happening. It was like looking at the world from outside myself, like there was a TV screen broadcasting my life. Hold on. Ellie ran to a vending machine full of drinks and bought a bottle of water. Here, drink. Welp. I know, right? Little mistakes. I really was thirsty, like I just run 10 kilometers without stopping. I emptied the entire bottle in one go. Thank you. Better now? I don't know. I listened to my senses and found that the panic did seem to have faded a little. Let's go? Let's go. I didn't want this to show weakness, not as much to her as to myself. However, that feeling of losing control over the situation frightened me. Did I really control anything in my own life? By the time we reached the studio, we found that the other members of Z Feel Z had started without us. We were thanking you when it come. Ishida greeted us cheerfully, but his demeanor quickly soared as he noticed our battered condition. We weren't coming from school? I was about to reply, but Ellie was faster. Hey, Heat Dude! What's up? How you doing today? Welcome to Love, Money, Rock and Roll. How have you been? It's good to see ya. Sure we are. See, I'm wearing my uniform. Although our uniform wasn't exactly neat, to put it mildly. It seemed that as soon as the wardrobes had gone empty after my parents' death would be filled with female clothes again. Call you Heart? Alrighty. It says Heat Dude. So not Heart. Is it Heart Dude? I think you can change your username if you want to. You forgot the R in great. Gotcha. You gotta remember, I think you can change your username though on Twitch. It's up to you though. Do what you do wish doing, alrighty? But yeah, how have you been? Oh, you've been great. Awesome. I skipped though. I decided to not ruin the story. The panic that had come over me on the street seemed like nothing but a memory now. But a surreal feeling to everything around me made it hard to focus on playing music. It seemed that there was a pilot in my head controlling my body like it was a robot. No matter how skillful he was, some delay and inaccuracy was inevitable. We played awfully. I noticed it, and so did everyone else. Alright, let's take a lunch break. 2 months? Aw, you gotta wait 2 months? Nah, fudge. Well, enjoy the wait. Enjoy being called Heat Dude for a while. I'll try and remember the right name. Don't worry. 95 or 59 days. Cool. Ishida finally put the guitar away. You guys can go. Nick and I have eaten it already. Yes, but I would have grabbed a bite too, but Ellie apparently wanted something with me. Once we were left alone, she took a small bag full of powder without a moment's hesitation. Not again. When will you do Among Us streams? I'm thinking of changing the schedule a bit. As a little experiment, I'm going to try streaming Among Us this Saturday. Saturday will be the day, Heart Dude. Or just Heart. Yes, that'll be the day this week. Another one? Want some recovery juice? Again? I exclaimed but felt less confident in my indignation than yesterday. A bottle of beer really does help with a hangover, and I could definitely use some help. You do realize this is an addiction now, right? I'm not saying we should go like yesterday. She pouted like a little girl accused of stealing candy from the cupboard. See? We're not getting anywhere today, and if we just have a little bit of this, we'll be fine. I felt a bile rise in my throat. You know, I was just thinking that I was a bad influence on you. Sorry to disappoint. Ellie smiled and came closer, waving the bag in front of my nose. The memories of the euphoria that I felt yesterday made it so much harder to refuse. Alright, honestly, we're gonna refuse this, right? Like, this is bad. This is getting not good. I'm going to refuse this time, too. Oh, gosh darn it, I did accept again. Ah, fine, but just a little bit. We quickly refueled, the other guy soon returning. Apparently the doping worked. I spent the rest of the rehearsal playing much better. This is such a good idea, isn't it, guys? When we walked out to the street, it was already evening, but my internal clock stubbornly asserted that it was lunchtime. Does anybody want to get a bite? I know a bar nearby. Why not? Mitsuyoshi shrugged his shoulders. Yeah, good idea. We can discuss the concert too. Ellie didn't mind either, and Tokyo Rider looked at us for a ride took us for a ride in his expensive sports car. You'd be able to play with Among Us on Saturday because you have school on Friday. Yeah, this will be a little experiment. Who can watch and who can play on Saturdays? There's no reason for me to stream it on Fridays now, since my games club is cancelled permanently. So this will be a test. It'll be good to see you on Saturdays. How did he have so much money? At the time of the day, almost all the tables in the bar were occupied, but the bartender still managed to find us a place. Hang on a minute. Give us a second. Is this bad, guys? I think this is bad, though. The drug taking. Brought friends along today, Kolya? Yeah, this is my band. I replied hesitantly, as if embarrassed about something. A band? Really? Cool. Seriously, though, let me shake a musician's hand. When we got seated, I immediately said, sorry about the bartender. Sometimes he goes overboard with hospitality. Same to you. Awesome, Art. Is he from your homeland? Yeah, something like that. If I were asked to name the worst representatives of their respective peoples, I would immediately name the bartender and Kyosuke. Although, of course, there's their particular clumsiness and inability to understand the context of a situation were more than compensated for by the size of their souls. Want a chip, Ultima? Yes, I will. I'll take a chip. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you for the chip. It's very delicious. Thank you very, very much. Another? Alright, I'll take it too. Nom 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 nom. Ah, very delicious. Not many options in this place. Mitsuyoshi was carefully studying the menu. They served 5 ramen and beer. I sneaked a glance at Ellie. She was sitting on her chair with a bored look. I have to work a night shift. And I'm driving. I think I'll pass on that too. Hey, you're the best streamer. Thanks. I try my best, Art. I do the bestest I possibly can. And I'm glad that you're enjoying it. It suddenly felt like an alcoholic juiced, just because I even mentioned beer. In the end, everyone chose something to their liking. I ordered a burger and a bottle of cola. So about the concert... I can't see your own text for me. Really? Refresh. Try to refresh the chat. Even though there's still half a week left, it'll be Nick's first concert and a good chance to make a name for ourselves. I talked to the manager of the club, and he said there'll be a guy from a record label. If we don't screw up, it'll be a great chance for us to finally release a demo. Think it'll work? We won't be the only ones performing there. Not saying you'll offer us a contract. Alrighty, go for it. Ishida gave us an impatient look. In the worst case, we'll record it at our own expense. Yeah, money isn't a problem. No, well, he said strictly. We agreed from the beginning that the band was a shared project. We performed together, and we handled the expenses together, in equal parts. It worked. Hey! Attaboy. Well done, welcome back. Do you agree, Nick? I do. The situation forced me to agree, but deep inside I saw nothing wrong with Ellie bearing a slightly larger part of the expenses. No problem. For once, Kobayashi Corporation's money could serve a good cause. Besides, we aren't talking about an astronomical amount of money here. My first demo, Ellie muttered dreamily. I wonder what the cover will be. I'm more interested in the songs that will be in it. How long is the demo usually? About 20 minutes? Or less. So only 3 or 4 songs? He sighed in disappointment. Well, it's demo. The point is to show what we are capable of. A full-fledged album would come later. Hey, Eliza! Welcome back to the stream. It's good to see ya. You have arrived in the final chapter. You're a little sick. Oh, get better, alright? Get well soon. What do you have? Drink ginger ale. It helps. It helps tremendously. A full album. Ellie and Mitsuyoshi excelled in unison. As for me, I listened to the conversation that felt, feeling like a secretary, invited to a board meeting, given 5 minutes to do a presentation, then forgotten in a corner. Guys, come back to reality. We just haven't even performed yet. We're already making plans. Hey, no problem. Hope, you get well soon. Geez, like we can't even dream some. Dream as much as you want, just don't forget about reality. Ellie suddenly frowned. What are you talking about? Had they had a conversation about Ellie's addiction before? Nothing really. I have no idea what you just said there, Hart, but, very cool. Ishida backed off. Just wanted to say that we all need to take preparations for this concert seriously. I'm always prepared. Tokyo Writer said suddenly, and an awkward silence descended upon our table. We don't doubt you. Ishida finally broke it. That's the ABCs you learned? Ah, interesting. We don't doubt anyone, and definitely not Nick. Right, Nick? I couldn't quite understand if she was joking, laughing, or teasing. Share some of your confidence with me. I can share something else. Alright, I gotta go to work. Ishida stood up sharply like something had bitten his ass. There had to be something in Z-Fields' past I was yet to learn about. Ishida was the first to leave as we said goodbye to Mitsuyoshi and Tokyo Rider outside. I felt better, but I was extremely tired. The problem dose had already worn off. Say, Ellie, the question wouldn't leave my head, and I couldn't bear staying quiet. Did they know about... Jesus, Nick, stop taking me for an idiot. I'm just asking. She stopped and raised her head as if looking for something in the sky. Maybe. Maybe what? That's the answer to your question. Maybe they do. She said calmly. Before meeting you, I never thought about that this sort of thing was bad. When am I gonna end stream? At the 3-hour mark. Look how long the stream is, and when it says 3 hours, that's when I'm gonna end it. Start another stream. I'll be streaming tonight, and then tomorrow at 12. Tonight at 9, tomorrow at 12. Before meeting you, I never thought that but now... She turned around and looked pleadingly into my eyes. If you want me to, I'll never do it again. Did I really want that? With my heart and soul? Ellie was overwhelmed by emotion and hugged her tightly and kissed her. "'Cause you gotta go. Take care, heart. Have a good day, and I'll see you very, very, very soon. Bye!" Remember, he will prank you sometimes? Oh, you tricky boy. Alright. Try as you might. I might, prank back. Hehehe. When you say you accidentally took coke, is that you need for the plot, but you don't endorse it? Huh? When you say you accidentally took... What do you mean by that, D. Williams? Let's go home. She suddenly broke out on my embrace and ran a couple of steps away. Not today. Need to go home at least occasionally. Otherwise, Grandpa will misunderstand. Thank you, heart. I'll see you soon. You be well. Right, sorry. See you at school tomorrow. Haven't forgotten about it. Bye! Ellie waved goodbye and ran to the car parked nearby. If her bodyguards were around all the time, the situation wasn't just dangerous, it was catastrophic. Catastrophic. Not only had I climbed the highest tree around, I was even sawing away at the branch I was sitting on. If you want me to, I'll never do it again. What mattered most was that Ellie wouldn't forget those words tomorrow. I was walking home in a grim state of mind. The first bout of drowsiness had already passed, but my body seemed to have switched to energy-saving mode, my brain being the first organ to suffer. I only noticed somebody sitting on the porch when I almost bumped into him. Or rather, into her! Kagome was sitting on my porch! What are you doing here? She opened her eyes widely, as if genuinely surprised by my reaction and the fact that I was even here. Aren't you happy to see me? I wasn't expecting you. Let's go inside. Sure, logically, Ellie's guards wouldn't be watching the house when she wasn't there, but I still preferred not to risk it. Alright. Coke is a street name for a drug. I know, I was wondering why you're asking that. Relationship, if you don't want people to follow this example. What are you asking now? Sorry, I'm very, very stupid. Try and use a full, block of text to explain what you're talking about. My eyes were closing by themselves, and I was fighting the desperate desire to make some tea. I wanted to quickly find out what Kagome wanted from me and finally go to sleep. You have my full attention. She walked around the table, running her hand over its top as if choosing a piece of furniture in a shop, and there was something suspicious about that estimating gesture. Better not talk at school. I get that. Anyone who starts a conversation with me would get strange looks, like I'm contagious. You know, you're partially to blame for that. Oh, really? She raised an eyebrow and finally sat down. You did everything in your power to make them suspect you. Why are you surprised when that's exactly what happened? No matter how long someone innocent pretends to be guilty, they don't become it. That's a nice bit of sophistry. I took my head into my hands and leaned heavily against the wall. Kind of. Kagome smiled mysteriously. Just wanted to say thank you. For what? For not spending the rest of my life in prison. For the fact that they let my father go. I don't have anything to do with that. Better thank Ellie. You think so? If I hadn't been so tired, I most likely wouldn't have said any of this. After all, Ellie wasn't directly related to what had happened to Kagome and her father. You need to take drugs to progress. Are you talking about this game, D. Williams? With Ellie, but you don't want people to do drugs. I'm doing it. I'm trying to get every ending in this game. So for this particular ending, I have to do them. I didn't know what you were talking about. I thought you meant real life or something. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I don't do that stuff in real life. Nope. Never ever. I wonder how come they let you go of you so easily. Do you really have nothing to do with it? She asked without a hint of anger, but I stayed silent. Yeah, now you got it. Maybe they got an order from above, or maybe, I don't know. I see. And that's it? What else? Sorry, I'm very tired. That's obvious enough. After all, you haven't been to school today. Her relationship with Kobayashi is developing, I can see. If you're going to... No, on the contrary. Wanted to say that I've thought about it a lot and decided I haven't been fair to her. Thought a lot, have you? Prison's a good place to think, you know? How long did you spend there? Three days? I smirked and waved across the room in order to not fall asleep standing up. Enough to understand something. Something? We don't choose our family and upbringing. This inheritance stays with you forever and influences your entire life. Right, so maybe Kobayashi doesn't realize what she's doing. And what is she doing? In the end, Ellie had done Kagome no wrong, at least personally. Iwamura only frowned in response. You seem to be a bit fixated on Ellie. Forget it. She responded angrily and stood up. Everything is back to normal, thank God. I exclaimed joyfully, flinging my arms into the air. And waved him like I just don't care. Kagome looked like she was about to explode any second, but suddenly relaxed. You're right, that's not why I'm here. Maybe even such a short stay in prison didn't help my manners. You mean they treated you badly there? Not really. I suppressed the desire to ask for details about the conditions in Japanese prisons or detention facilities or wherever she had been. Well, Nico-san, thank you again. Anytime. I grumbled without repeating that I had nothing to do with it. If there was anyone to thank here, it'd be Kobayashi-jun. As if he cared about some girl. Don't worry, I won't bother you. 2 at school. Very considerate of you. Before leaving my place, Kagome looked around as if she'd forgotten something important. Then I'd better go. Good night, Nico-san. Good night. Alright. Let me check one more thing real quick. Alright. Give me a second, folks. Give me a second. Okay, all is good so far. For some reason, I saw Iwamura to the gate. After she disappeared from sight, I felt like a weight had fallen from my shoulders. Finally, I could go to sleep. But before that, I long stared at the sky that, for some reason, looked unusually clear tonight. The stars practically bright. I suddenly imagined myself standing at the bottom of the sea, looking up at the myriad of small fish swimming near the surface, glistening beautifully in the rays of the sun. Like stars. I went back inside, closed the door, and completely exhausted, dragged myself to my room. Still, her politeness, courtesy, and even friendliness were bizarre. Did she really believe I had helped her evade prison? Sure, to a degree my actions had helped her indirectly, but I had zero desire to overestimate my own importance. Kagome remained a mystery girl, and no difficulties or strokes of misfortune seemed to be able to change her personality. Whether it was a good personality was another question entirely, but deep inside I envied her resilience. Good night, everyone. Good night. Oh, good morning. Oh, look at us now. We're actually playing in a band finally. Finally, the rock and roll stuff starts. At last. Lately, the strings of my guitar had started to feel more and more violent. Violent? A couple of weeks ago, when I first started to play again, they would dig into my fingers like sharp, thin fishing lines. But now every movement I made not only brought the right sounds out of the amplifier, but it was accompanied by a pleasant response from the string. Way to go, Nick. Mitsuyoshi praised me. So much progress in such a short time. I'm impressed. He spoke genuinely, but for whatever reason, to me, it still sounded like a routine compliment. Now with the concert just around the corner, Z definitely had no time to find a new bass player. Ishida wiped the sweat from his forehead, walked to us, and smiled encouragingly. For once, I'm not worried about the rhythm section. Imagine if Yamada heard you right now. Both of them laughed. Well, I didn't know how to react since I'd only seen their former bass player once, from a distance, standing in the audience hall. Guys, stop embarrassing Nick. Look, he's all red. Ellie sneaked up from behind and lightly elbowed me in the ribs. Ouch! I jumped in place in pretend. After that day, Ellie never offered me a pick-me-up again, and seemingly wasn't taking any herself. Wasn't completely sure about that, though, so I kept a careful eye on her, noting any changes in her behavior, but I didn't notice anything in particular. Gradually, my suspicions began to fade. Let's go one more time. Elle, maybe that's enough. Ishida pleaded tiredly. Even if he had run out of energy, it was definitely time to stop. Seems like someone's tired. All things in moderation. Nothing good will come out of exhausting ourselves. I was of the same opinion, even though I did feel that tired. Meanwhile, Ellie was beaming with energy. It seemed that if I came any closer, I'd get burned. I think Ishida's right too. Who else thinks that? She stared me down, and I, smiling idiotically, looked toward Tokyo Rider, who had just been standing behind the synthesizer, but wasn't there now. Ellie realized she'd started losing people to attrition, pursed her lips and putting the guitar away. That's all for today. Thanks, everyone. Ishida and Mitsuyoshi exhaled in relief. Can I take the bass home? I mean, I have my own, but I just don't want to switch instruments too much before the concert. Of course you can. Ellie shrugged, puzzled. I would have never been able to afford a guitar like it. So the last rehearsal before the concert is the day after tomorrow? Yes, and we start at 2, don't forget. A commanding tone in Ellie's voice made her sound like a general giving the last orders to his troops before the final battle. We won't. Alright then, see ya. Once Ishida and Mitsuyoshi left us alone, began to leisurely collect the cables and other devices. Stretch. Oh, fudge. That's it, Nick. She sat down in Mitsuyoshi's stool behind the drums and tapped out a syncopation, with an expression like she was about to tell me we were breaking up. That's it? I grew alert. You're a full-fledged member of Z Feels Z now. Congrats. Ah, you meant that. What did you think? Never mind. Do I get some sort of medal? A membership card, maybe? Nothing like that. She threw her arms to the aside in disappointment, hitting a cymbal. I can only offer myself. She started to take off her clothes. No. By now I was used to Ellie's expressiveness and sensuality, so sex in an empty rehearsal studio didn't seem quite so unusual. Don't do it. Okay, thank goodness. We were walking home hand in hand. Yay. What do you mean, yay? She's taking off her clothes. Oh my gosh. I was carrying a case with the bass guitar on my shoulder, while Ellie had the bag with all the devices. Nights were getting longer. The starlights grew colder. Oh, that was yay to the band part. Not to the removing of clothes part, my gosh. But I was warmed by the simple thought that next to me walked a girl who loved me. We seemed to be floating down the streets of Tokyo, enclosed in an impenetrable bubble protecting us from the cold and darkness. The last few days had been so peaceful that I'd begun to forget the constant foreboding that I felt. Yeah, not the clothes. Good God. No, please. I really wanted to believe that even I was meant to have some happiness. Do you believe in fate? Fate? Ellie thought for a moment. I don't even know. If you mean that there's meaning to all our actions, yes I do. No, I meant more like destiny. Why are you so philosophical all of a sudden? Difficulties in life make you wonder if there's any meaning to all this. Yeah, found any? Not yet, but I'm still looking. Tell me when you do. We approached home. I no longer felt deeply awkward when Ellie called it our home, except that today, Kagome was once again sitting on the porch of our home. Nico-san, Kobayashi-san. Once she saw us, she immediately stood up and smiled. Iwamura-san. Ellie greeted her coldly, not even looking too surprised to see her. I just came to give Nico-san some papers for our Wednesday test. Really? She took some papers out of her bag. I'm still our class representative, remember? Is it that urgent? But you weren't at school yesterday. Kagome looked genuinely surprised, like sitting at the door of a classmate's house and waiting for him on a Saturday evening was totally normal. Have you been spying on us? Nico-san and I are in the same class. She replied confidently. Of course, Iwamura used to act weirdly even before. But she'd always been aggressive rather than showing excessive and inappropriate interest in her classmates' academic achievements. Nico-san and I are very grateful. Ellie said sarcastically and squeezed my hand tighter. I won't bother you two anymore. Have a nice evening. She left the papers on the porch and passed by us with a strange smile on her face. What was that? After holding a pretty long pause. She was holding a pause? How does she hold one? It's not a physical thing. Ellie jumped away from me, jumped on her foot. Oh, paws, like a cat's paw? That's weird, Ellie, and sternly looked at me in the eye. Are you asking me? She came to you, brought papers for your Wednesday test. She mocked Iwamura. I swear I just know just as much about this as you do. Ellie's jealousy was understandable and explainable, but I couldn't even imagine what Kagome really wanted. I only knew one thing. She had something on her mind. I'm just as angry as you are. Yeah? And what are you angry at? Ellie, for God's sake. We spent almost 24 hours a day together. When would I... She thought about it. Fine, I forgive you this time, but I'll be watching you. We entered our home accompanied by the cold whisper of the stars, leaving Ellie's guards to freeze in the car around the corner. Yay! We made our guards freeze to death, guys. We did it. We beat the game. Ooh, we're back in the band place. Awesome. Sorry, I know I'm always checking things. What kind of things? That's a secret. Shh, don't tell. One of our songs had a particularly complicated bass part that I just couldn't get the hang of. Especially the middle of it, which I had to run my left hand up and down the neck like a virtuoso. Maybe I could just play the 8th note on the opening strings. I asked half-jokingly, but the rest of the band looked at me like I just committed blasphemy. Give it to me. Ellie took my bass and effortlessly played the bridge I'd failed time and time again. It's a shame you can't play multiple instruments at the same time. Nah, enough already. Just watch what I do and repeat it. She frowned and gave the bass back to me. Just. Sometimes it seemed to me like among the members of Z Feel Z, I was most relaxed about music, except probably for Tokyo Rider. But understanding when he was and wasn't serious wasn't an easy task in general, and it wasn't even about the lack of experience. Music was still mostly just a hobby for me, while for them it was an important, maybe integral part of their lives. I'll try. In reality, Ellie's demonstration hadn't helped at all. On the contrary, the last bits of my confidence evaporated without a trace. When a clown at a child's party juggles 10 balls at once, then offers to teach you, a 6-year-old, to do the same, it's met with a smile. Meanwhile, I didn't just feel like a clown, but an entire circus in a burnt-out building with no audience. Nice. That's a reference to a different game. I recognize that. Maybe you'd have it easier with a 5-string bass, Ashida said thoughtfully. Thanks, but I'd like to get a handle on 4 first. To be honest, I had always believed that the fewer strings there were, the better. Alright, let's try it again. 1, 2... Mitsuyoshi started a count. Alright, we're doing it again. We're playing again, guys. All in all, I could hit the right notes and didn't go too far out of line, but it still felt to me like my parts were recorded separately and played on a tape. The others played calmly, occasionally bringing passion and improvisation to their music, while I was putting all my all into not just screwing up. Sure, bass wasn't the leading instrument, and maybe a mistake or two would go unnoticed, but without a well-played rhythm section, rock music loses a good half of its feeling. Besides, I simply felt ashamed in front of the guys. The strangest thing was, at first I used to think that I was doing pretty great, but the longer we practiced, the more I realized I was years and years behind my band members in terms of skill. And when we finished, I, exhausted, put the bass away and slid down against the wall. Do we really have to work ourselves to death right before the concert? Do you do that every time? I moaned, not addressing anyone in particular. Actually, no, but we're under special circumstances right now, as in me. Ishida smiled apologetically. It's fine, I get it. Thank you, guys. And gal. Ellie grinned and played a couple of chords from American Woman. American Woman! Me! Alright, I wish you all a good sleep. Mitsuyoshi stood up from behind the drums and tiredly looked over the room. His gazing stopped first on me, and then Ellie. The hint, although not completely obvious, was improbable. He immediately caught himself. I, for one, will need at least 8 hours of healthy sleep. That we meet tomorrow at 6 in front of the club. I'll be there. I very much hope so. As usual, the two of us left the rehearsal studio last. Let's go home? I sounded unsure, but Ellie seemed to have paid attention. No, I can't make it today. Grandpa wants to talk about something, so I'll have to stay at my place. Talk about what? Don't worry, we aren't going to discuss any evil schemes. She frowned. Promise? Promise! Ellie kissed me goodbye, though somewhat coldly. It was just my imagination. I was walking home feeling somehow relieved. I could really use some good sleep, which would be a lot harder to get with Ellie in the same bed as me. There were a couple of blocks left before I reached home. Wasn't really paying attention, deep in my own thoughts, so it took some time for me to hear someone calling me. Uh-oh, there might be an uh-oh. Who's calling me? Who could it be, Mafia? San. Nico-san! It's me again! Motherfuck. Kagome was walking next to me with an arm's reach and smiling. Nico-san, good evening. Evening. It seemed that we had been seeing each other outside of school too often lately. Going home? Going home. And you? Yes, only out of politeness. I had something to do after class, so I had to stay up for a while. I see. Unless Kagome was going to walk all the way to a restaurant, she'd chosen a bad route. It would have been much easier to take a train at the nearest station from the school. Unless, of course, it was intentional. Iwamura-san, I said with a pointless politeness. I don't want to offend you, but recently we seem to be meeting each other too often. Are you afraid that Kobayashi will be jealous? She squinted cunningly. That too, but most importantly, I have a feeling that you need something from me. I've already told you, I just want to thank you for saving my father and helping me. You've already done that, I said carefully. She suddenly paused for a moment, but it's always nicer when gratitude reaches the recipient, so to speak. I can only say once again that I had nothing to do with what happened, although I'm glad everything ended well. Come on, don't be modest. She suddenly laughed and jabbed me lightly with her elbow. Definitely didn't expect that from Iwamura. Do I look like a modest person? Right now, yes. We stopped at an intersection. All right, see you tomorrow then. She said happily and headed for the nearest station. What the hell was that? What the hell? I returned home, made dinner, but had no appetite whatsoever. I just couldn't get Kagome's strange behavior out of my mind. I was sure she never did anything without a purpose, and maintained a friendship with another person wasn't her style. I wonder if she ever had friends. Besides, I was scared of how Ellie might react. I didn't want to give her the slightest reason for pointless jealousy, but at the same time, I couldn't do anything about Kagome. What was I supposed to tell her? What? Was I supposed to tell her to F off? And I had an important concert tomorrow. They're just saying that because of me. What? What did I say? What did I say? What did I ruin your speech with? My fingers hurt and my shoulders ached from the guitar strap. I went to bed around 10 but couldn't fall asleep until late in the night, constantly running through scenarios of me screwing up my first and apparently last stage appearance. Oh, what the hell in that funny voice? What the hell? It's a reference from an old YouTube video, by the way. When we're done here, Mafia Babe, or whenever you're ready, just look up Kelly Shoes and enjoy. Enjoy some of YouTube's greatest history. Loading. 13th. Wow. Wild night. It was probably a good thing that Ellie and I met right after school and went to the club together. Otherwise, I would have died of anxiety. Nick, you look so pale. She came closer and gently touched my forehead. The guitars, our equipment, and several bags with stuff lay against the wall. All of it had been brought to by her guards, which itself looked pretty weird. Yeah, technically you started saying that because of the video I recommended you. Because that video changed the way I say that now. The other members appeared soon enough. Alright, so, we go second, a bit after 7. Let's get inside then. That's the sound guy asked us not to be late for the sound check. Ooh. My bass sounded completely different on stage compared to our rehearsal studio, different even from how I remembered hearing it from the hall of the same club. I told Ishida about it, but he just shrugged. Don't worry, that's normal. You don't want them to turn the speakers on us so we go deaf, right? I guess not. It was much easier to get myself together than I'd expected. Despite the jittering, my fingers remembered each part, and sometimes seemed to start playing all on their own by passing my mind. Oh, here's everyone. Everyone's here. We waited in the dressing room until the first band finished the introduction, and finally it was time for Z Feel Z to take the stage. Don't worry, Nick. Everything's going to be fine. I'm not worried. Although I am, but I'm fine. For luck. She kissed me lightly and ran ahead. There was way more people in the hall than I thought, and the club seemed to have grown in all 3 dimensions, the far end having floated off somewhere into the distance beyond the haze of cigarette smoke. The audience was looking at us impatiently, not having heard what they'd expected from the first band. The silence was dragging on. Ellie was having issues with her microphone, but finally she sorted it out and loudly greeted the hall. Hey, mother effers, let's have a good time! Let's enjoy the show. This looks cool, guys. We're gonna rock like crazy. At long last, I am ready. Woo. Hello, everyone. I hope this would be a fun evening for you all. We're Z Feel Z. Mitsuyoshi started the count, and the music took over my entire being. What I felt during rehearsal and up on stage were like 2 entirely different states of matter. Back there, I'd been something hard, inert, giant, highly resistant to any interaction. I had to put tremendous effort into every note I played. But here I seemed to have cast off my physical self. Oh. VOD mute. Copyright claim video. Just a single glance at the bass was enough to know what sound it was going to make next. Looked at Ellie. She transformed completely. The girl with the guitar looked like a stranger to me, radiating enough energy to illuminate the hall better than any stage the light would in the world. Coming closer, I could feel the heat coming off from her. I found myself thinking that for a while I've been paying 0 attention to my bass, simply playing immersed in the music. And the first song came to its end. The club gave us a moderate amount of applause. Thank you! She said as she kept singing. Ellie shouted into the microphone. We started to the next song without a pause. Guys, this voice here, it's Ellie. We can hear Ellie's voice. Wow. Ishida wasn't the most expressive guitarist in the world, but he still shook his head to the beat of the all right places. In all the right places, twirling and bouncing around. Meanwhile, I just stood still and tried to play my part as quickly as possible. Eventually, I got bored of that. I slowly approached Ishida and leaned forward together with the bass. He understood my silent request and immediately began swaying back and forth, waving his guitar like a paddle. I'd seen something like this at concerts with Western rock bands, but just a moment earlier I would never have imagined trying it. The feeling of lightness and freedom was intoxicating. We started playing the third track, and all my senses sharpened. I could feel the strings vibrating, see the flashes of the drum beats, smell the guitar solo. Sweat ran down my forehead and got in my eyes, but I didn't care. My perception was so amplified that I felt every note with my spinal cord. At the same time, I only now realized that I'd long stopped looking at the audience. In the entire universe, there was only the stage and the other 4 people standing on it. We're performing for the planets, flying up through clusters of galaxies, sailing over waves of dark matter, racing against the background radiation. The 4th piece was the song that I could never manage well enough when we practiced it, so I had to return to Earth to focus on my playing. But to my surprise, my fingers danced up and down the neck effortlessly like the tentacles of an octopus. We played 5 songs and said goodbye to the audience that had treated us warmly, but without a storm of applause, and returned to the dressing room. See, and you were worried. Ellie wiped the sweat off her forehead and greedily downed a bottle of water. I couldn't come up with anything to say and grabbed one of the many beers that were on the table. Ellie looked at me with surprise but said nothing and just smiled. I'll also say that everything went better than expected. So you didn't think highly of Nick to begin with, did you? Mitsuyoshi teased him. I never said that. Ishida got mad. Relax, it's a joke. The atmosphere in the room was celebratory, but the concert was far from over. There were 3 more bands performing after us. Do you want to listen to the others? Why not? I shrugged. You can go first, I'll catch up, Ellie said, going through her handbag. We walked to the hall right when the next band was appeared on stage. Dragons of Fury! Mitsuyoshi whispered in my ear. What? Dragons of Fury, that's the name of the band. Dumb name. I scoffed, but none of the guys shared my mood. The Dragons were playing heavier music than we had, and were 5 to 10 years older than us as well. And the audience clearly liked them better. And apparently the organizers had chosen the order the bands played in based on popularity. An hour earlier, something so unfair would have made me furious, but now I just felt proud of myself and Z-feel-Z. When you've given it your all, you don't care so much about not making it into the Guinness Book of Records that day. We were standing at the bar, idly sipping beer, but Ellie still hadn't returned from the dressing room. Ellie's taking her time. I got a little anxious. Don't hurry her. She always needs some time alone to recover after a concert. She always gives it her all, Mitsuyoshi added, but there was something disingenuous about the way they said it, like they were trying to cover for a fellow drinker in front of his wife as she looked for him. You're not telling me something, guys. Like what? Ishida asked calmly but still looked away. Like, I don't know. I looked at Tokyo Rider but his ever-present, even indoor sunglasses made his expression unreadable. I'll go and check. Nick? Ishida raised his hand to stop me, but then sighed deeply and stepped aside. Something was wrong. I could feel it. And it wasn't even that she wouldn't come out for so long. Ellie had been in the dressing room alone for 40 minutes or so. The entire performance of the Dragons of Fury. But that was enough. Uh-oh. I opened the door and saw her sitting on the floor in a sort of unnatural pose. Ellie, what happened? Hi, Nick. I was about to join you guys, but then I felt a bit dizzy. Ellie said in a weak voice. I jumped to her and tried to help her stand up, but she pushed me away. Everything's fine. She was slurring her words and looked anything but fine. Pale face, dilated pupils, arms hanging powerlessly from her body. Do you feel okay? No, Nick. I feel great. And then I realized, how much did you take? Just a bit. Sorry. She suddenly started crying. I promise you I wouldn't do any more, but I was so worried I couldn't help it. I'm going to call an ambulance. I dashed across the room, looking for a phone that most likely wasn't there. Wait, don't. Everything will be alright. Just let me rest. How can I just watch you die? Everything's going to be fine. I promise. She tried to smile and failed miserably. Ellie, how much did you take? Everything I had. And how much did you have? God damn it. Nick, don't be mad. I love you. What does love have to do with it? You can't just love me if you're dead. I was shouting at her, even though deep inside I understood right now it was useless. Trying to assign blame instead of solving the problem never works well. I could repeat that Ellie shouldn't have done it as many times as I wanted, but what would it achieve? At that moment, I had to solve a specific problem and only then figure out how to not let it happen again. Nick, don't worry. Of course I'm worried. I'm going to fucking worry. What else am I supposed to do? Everything was fine. Why? And still, like almost everyone in such a situation, I was going back down the path of pointless accusations. A thought flashed through my mind of what Kobayashi Jun would do to me if Ellie died. I swore at myself at all that is holy for my cowardness, but the thought was only getting stronger. If you love me, why didn't you think about me? About how I'd feel if something happened to you? Nick, I'm sorry. I just miscalculated a little. I'm gonna sit here for a bit, and it'll all pass. I bent over, grabbed her powerless arm, and found the vein in her wrist. Her pulse was in overdrive. God, your heart is beating like crazy. But that means I'm still alive, right? She barely managed to smile. There wasn't a phone to be found in the dressing room. But I physically couldn't bear just waiting around. Hold on, I'll go get Ishida. A minute later, the two of us were standing over Ellie, who was on the floor in the same pose. What do we do? I kept muttering. Elle, again? He sighed heavily. So this isn't the first time? I was ready to tear into Ishida as if it was all his fault. In the absence of any real physical threat to our own lives, the part of my brain we inherited from animals, which is responsible for emotions tried to find in our surroundings, the reason we were worrying over a loved one. The overly dramatic academic explanation didn't stop me from going off at Ishida. What he did was the understanding that even the promise Ellie had made with me didn't stop her. To me, the person who, according to her, she loved. Sorry. It's okay. I understand. Don't worry. It'll be alright. It has to be. Guys, I'm still alive, and I don't plan on dying anytime soon. Ellie's face finally started returning to its natural color. If you got any left, hand it over to me right now. I don't have any left. Honest. Nick, we can't leave her here. She needs to rest and sleep. I understand, but her guards are at the club. There's a back entrance. Don't act like I'm not here. Ellie protested weakly. Ask Tokyo Rider to get the car. I'll leave in 5 minutes. Thank you. When Ishida left, I sat on the floor next to Ellie. How are you? I feel like I just ran a marathon, then remembered I'd forgotten my wallet at the start and ran back. I'd imagine so. Do you often end up like this? This is the first time. Ellie! Even Ishida's words alone made it clear it wasn't. After every concert? Really? This one is special, but it shouldn't become your last. Sorry. She started crying again. If you start feeling really bad, you'll tell me, right? She didn't respond and lowered her head even more. Ellie? Can't say I exactly feel good now either. But it'll pass. Soon, at some point. God, what am I going to do with you? That moment, I looked at her not like she was a girl I'd just started dating, but an alcoholic uncle cast out by the entire family. And that feeling made me very uncomfortable. I knew I had to help be with her, but at the same time, Ellie's problems felt like a burden. That had to be how people think, sitting at the beds of their sick relatives. The degradation of whose health they thought never encouraged, also never resisted. No, of course I didn't feel guilty about what happened to Ellie. I didn't, or didn't want to. Can you walk? Probably. This is bad, guys. This is what we call really bad. I don't know about you, but this is what we call really bad, okay? Really, really bad. Alright, give me a second. Okay, all's good still. Thankfully, Tokyo Rider's new sports car was already there. We laid Ellie on the back seat, which left no room for Ishida and Mitsuyoshi. I gave them my address and they promised to take a taxi and follow us. We chose my home of all places because I had no other ideas, and none of the guys offered a better alternative. We still had to decide what we'd say to the guards when Ellie would come to her senses. Although it seemed that she had excuses prepared for occasions like this. Tokyo Rider was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee in his hands. We put Ellie in my bed and closed the door. This is not very rock and roll, I know. It was. Then she had to do that. This just goes to show, guys, don't take drugs. You will end up like Ellie there. What part of that is fun, I ask? Answer, none of it is fun. Don't do it. Drink, like Coca-Cola instead. Or Kapuka, that's even better. Where did you find the coffee? I never had any. He just shrugged in response. Then I remembered that the coffee was one of the many things that Ellie's bodyguards had brought. Oh, right. I sighed. Is there any left? Truly cheerful is not one who has drunk coffee, but one who is ready for any stroke of fate. So there isn't? No. Mitsuyoshi, just remembered you made coffee. Oh dear. Mafia baby, gotta drink your coffee. It's gonna be cold. Although I couldn't tell where he was looking because of the sunglasses. I gotta stretch. Finally, somebody rang the doorbell. Is Elle alright? Ishida asked as soon as he entered the kitchen. She's alright. Wasn't as angry with him as in the dressing room, but the aftertaste remained. Concealing information on which a person's life and health depends is considered a crime in almost every country. On the other hand, what was he supposed to say? Hi Nick, glad to have you on board. Actually, didn't you know that Ellie likes to snort down lines? Were you followed? I don't think so. If you're worried about Elle's security, guys, don't be. They won't move until at least midnight, maybe even later. Yeah, we usually stay around after a concert to talk with other bands, so I see. Wasn't that we'd had become complete strangers to each other in the past hour, because we had never been particularly close either. But at this moment, I felt some kind of special disconnect between me and the rest of Z Feelsy. Sorry we didn't tell you, Nick, especially when you and Elle, well, you know. Love is like a rose in the wind. It comes unexpectedly, suddenly, and just as quickly it dies wretchedly. Tokyo Rider took out a real rose from somewhere and started to pluck its petals. Was he always like that? Yes, not addressing anyone in particular. For a minute we all kept silent. I'm not blaming anyone but myself. You see, I knew that Ellie was into it. Moreover, I'd participated, but she'd promised me she wouldn't do it again. And I believed her. Yes, I fucking did. Deep inside, an anger was rising, all at myself and the entire world. At first we tried to talk to her, but Mitsuyoshi started, but quickly stopped and lowered his head. It's just that Z Feelsy is built around Elle. If not for her, there wouldn't be a band. They were acting like older brothers, trying to find excuses to give to their parents for their younger siblings' bloody knee. Bad is not the wolf who is fed, but who cares if not for the forest? What the hell are you even talking about? I got furious. Nick, we understand that you're having it the worst right now. Thanks, but what the hell do I care? She doesn't listen to anyone, she won't listen to me either. No reply followed. I stood up and walked back and forth through the kitchen. And I'll also need to explain it to her grandfather, I muttered. What? Nothing. Ellie isn't a normal girl with a guitar. Normal girls don't get driven around in black Mercedes. That's for sure. My swallow is still faster, Tokyo Rider remarked nonchalantly. You two will need to have a serious talk when Elle wakes up. I know, but we've already talked and... My head was about to explode from all the stress. I suddenly felt like the air around me had run out of oxygen. It was as heavy and suffocating as that of a desert. It's like she doesn't hear me. Ellie's got a complicated character, and this is a delicate topic. I'm afraid that she ditched me. True, I couldn't rule out the possibility, but was I really worried about us not being together anymore? Was I just afraid of Kobayashi Jun's revenge? Of course, even if we were just playing in the same band, I wouldn't want a friend to die at such a young age for such a stupid reason. I just don't know what to do. Follow you must the voice of your heart, Tokyo Rider said in the voice of Master Yoda, and this time his comment was actually funny. I snorted despite myself. Mitsuyoshi laughed and Ishida smiled approvingly. Let me redo that then. Follow you must the voice of your heart. You must. But I don't have the force, and I didn't want to believe Ellie's force was thanks to an external substance. I first looked at Ishida. He gave me an apologetic look, and then at Mitsuyoshi, he lowered his eyes. I wondered if any of them had ever thought of starting a relationship with Ellie. After all, why not? And what stopped them in the end? Nick, we'll help you however we can, but right now, you need to handle this on your own. Maybe you'd have preferred to not be alone with Ellie when she woke up, but then having the other guys here could make her think the conversation we had to have was more of a tribunal. Thank you guys. Bye! I saw the boys to Tokyo Rider's car, and after they had left, Long stood in the street listening to the silence of the night. If the cars never found Ellie at the club, it was likely they'd go directly to my place. But so far they'd been nothing but polite, and had done their best to stay out of sight. I looked at Himitsu's house across the street. The lights were on in the windows. Of course it was stupid to expect that Ryunosuke-san would quit his job and move to the country with his daughter. How rapidly can a human life change? You're back. Welcome back. Mafia babe. Just over a month ago, I didn't even know Ellie and had maybe seen Kobayashi Jun on TV. Iwamura was still a normal classmate to me. We had never properly talked. And Himitsu, I had no one closer than her in the entire world. And now Ellie had taken her place? Do people really enter our lives that easily and leave them out just as well? And what's the point of holding on to a relationship of love if tomorrow everything might end instantly? You say or do something wrong, and feelings that had seemed unbreakable fade away. But it wasn't the time to plunge myself into the depths of existentialism. I returned to the house, walked to my room, and sat on the bed next to Ellie. She was sweating in her sleep, had thrown the blanket to the floor, and generally didn't look very healthy. I didn't want to wake her up, so I just kept sitting there until the last evening noises outside died off. Ellie finally stretched and opened her eyes. Nick? She gave me a cloudy look. Where are we? Home. Don't you remember anything? I remember we were playing at the concert, and then... Did I get that wasted? I couldn't remember Ellie ever drinking much beer. In a sense. What about the guys? She tried to get up, but I carefully stopped her, putting my hands on her shoulders. They've already left. What a disgrace. She covered her face with her hands. Decorum isn't what you should care about right now. Then what? Ellie asked with the innocence of a child. What were you doing in the dressing room while the guys and I went out to listen to the next band? Tried to make my voice sound as soft as possible, but there was still a hard tone to it. Apparently she remembered, frowned, and turned away. Ellie, you can't do that. I know that. Why do you need to repeat it for the 100th time? Because I'm worried. It seemed that my words weren't reaching her, and even agreeing with them, Ellie was still trying to stick to her guns. I'm trying to criticize you, so don't. She grumbled, barely audible. Don't what? Are you saying I should just watch you kill yourself? It seemed like the time for euphemisms was over. Don't be ridiculous. All rock stars dabble, and no one's died yet. Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Jim Morrison. Okay, I get it. You don't need to go on. It's not enough to just get it. You need to draw conclusions. What am I supposed to tell you? Do you want me to promise I'll never do it again? There was poorly hidden hostility in those words. I sighed, moving closer and put my head on Ellie's shoulder. We just met. I would have want to say goodbye so soon, or I wouldn't want to. Could a bit of humor help? Then don't force me to choose. Is there a choice for you? I was genuinely surprised by your words. What about everything you said about love? No, Nick, no. She immediately started up, raised herself on the bed, and wrapped her hands around me. I didn't mean that. Of course I love you. There's nothing more important to me. It's just what? Nothing. I love you. Do you believe me? Aw, I know. She loves me. If you love me, then maybe don't do drugs. Ellie was ready to burst into tears, and it was even strange that she still didn't. I do. Of course I do. I calmed her down, softly stroking her hair. But deep inside, I was starting to resent her. I believed Ellie's words. I wanted to. But at the same time, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that she just wanted me to confirm that she was sincere. Like, look, I love you. What else do you need? It resembled the whining of a child demanding that adults look at this or her drawing, even if they had much more important things to do. And how much real love was in there? How much was just some whim of a spoiled Ojo-sama? But love is shown through actions. And what do I need to do? My words cooled her down somewhat. You know what? Fine. She lay back in bed and turned away. What? I won't do it anymore. Happy now? Her answer was hardly convincing, but what else could I do in this situation? How do you feel now? Ellie didn't respond. Was she upset with me? By the way, about your security guards, they must still be waiting for you at the club. Let them wait. What, am I supposed to report to them? Not to them, I said, directly hinting at Kobayashi Jun. If grandfather needs me, he knows where to find me. Ellie wasn't afraid of the old man, and why would she be? But did she realize that I had plenty of reasons to fear him? I was sure she did on a conscious level, but unfortunately, we don't always listen to our voice of reason. A young lady can easily bring her boyfriend to meet her parents, knowing in advance that they won't approve of him, and most importantly, without even thinking about what it might mean for her cavalier. And with her actions, Ellie was pushing me even closer to the edge of the abyss. I felt disgusted by the fact that in this situation, I was more worried about myself than about the health and maybe even the life of a girl who loved me. Or she said she did. Alright, I didn't want my concern to sound like a lecture. Sorry. No, you're right. I should have been more careful. She sighed and paused before continuing. I want to say I shouldn't have done it at all, since I'd promise you. Ellie, if the only thing standing between that powder and you is a promise to me, it's not going to work very well. Ellie, I can hear you. I felt more and more like I was talking to a spoiled child. Since you can, would you tell me how you're feeling now? Fine. So I don't need to call an ambulance? I scoffed. Maybe a psychiatrist. I know that number by heart. That came that rare silence that where you're not pained by a need to do or say something to break it. Hey, Singy. How you doing today? Welcome to the rock and roll boat. No tennis boats today, sadly. Just rock and roll boats. You like rock and roll? Singy? You like it? As if my room was suspended in an endless void with nary a star, nor a planet for many light years around. And inside were only myself and Ellie, as she lay in bed, her back turned to me, probably thinking something of her own. Just a few hours ago, I thought I'd understand all her feelings. You're very late. You're late, but you're just in time for some crazy things that are happening in this game. Crazy, crazy things. Crazy, not good things, but maybe getting better, maybe? That we had no secrets from each other. Could I say that about myself? I was hiding a lot from Ellie, but not for the same reasons why I'd avoided answering Himitsu's questions, or was it just a convenient explanation? It's always easier to keep the truth hidden, shielding yourself with concern for others, persuading yourself that they can handle it. I cleaned myself and brushed my teeth, and when I got back, Ellie was already sleeping peacefully, wrapped in a blanket. Alright. Good night. Oh, good morning. Uh-oh. Okay, we're fine. I dreamt that we were breaking up. Oh, that's a good dream, right, Mafia babe? Oh, that's a great dream to have about your girlfriend. Ellie was shouting, breaking dishes, packing suitcases, taking all her things out of the wardrobes, much more than I remembered there ever being. She accused me of every possible thing, of having spoiled her best years just by existing. I was just sitting on the bed, my head lowered, listening to the endless and angry tirade, somewhere deep inside feeling relief for this finally being over. Perfect dream, I know, the best dream ever, the girl we're trying to win over, breaking up with us. Best dream ever! Okay. We're making really, really good progress, guys. Good progress, am I right? Can you wake up from a smell, I wonder? Probably. First you open your eyes, your conscious returns to the waking world, and only then does it start to perceive the strange smells that just aren't right for your house. Something was burning. I jumped out of the bed and began to shake my head, dumbfounded. There seemed to be no smoke, but also no Ellie. I dashed to the kitchen and found her standing by the stove. What are you doing? I asked angrily, still half asleep. Making breakfast, at least trying to. She replied in alarm and stepped away from the stove. On the pan, tortured beyond measure, like Giordano Bruno at the stake, some poorly cut vegetables had tragically died. Nearby stood a bowl with partially mixed eggs and fragments of their shells. Used to think this only happens in manga. What? That some people are this bad at cooking? Well, excuse me, princess. She pouted, but looked angry with herself more than anything. I just never had a reason to learn. You couldn't play bass before, too. I still can't. I sighed and threw the charred remains into the trash. All right then, I'll show how it's done. Taught me to play the guitar, so it's my turn now. We ended up with a pretty decent omelet and with vegetables and ate it with great pleasure, partially due to having skipped dinner yesterday. See, wasn't that difficult. Oh man, I'm gonna need a drink real quick. Stay hydrated, guys. Drink your drinks. Mafia babe, you got your coffee? Singy, you got your tennis boat drink? Good stuff. Good stuff. Am I right, guys? Wasn't difficult. Then next time it's my turn. Looking forward to it. I replied sarcastically. Hey, for a moment you could almost see that this was a normal conversation between a normal young couple on a normal morning. But looking at Ellie, I couldn't get yesterday night out of my head. We seemed to have come to some sort of compromise, or at least I'd force her to accept my point of view. Ellie wasn't a complete sociopath. I couldn't, in all seriousness, say her behavior was normal. Excuse me. At least openly. But it was obvious that in her mind she didn't really agree with me, and more importantly, she couldn't quite tell good from bad. Not that I was much better. About your guards, to be honest, I didn't want to have this conversation at all. I told you, I'll handle it. Her expression darkened immediately. It was weird that nobody had called me yesterday. It might have been that they knew where Ellie was all along. A thought made me feel somewhat uneasy, because then it was logical to assume that Kobayashi Jun was also aware of the other events of yesterday evening. Excuse me, my gosh. Throat is dying now. Only worried about one thing. What? What my grandfather thinks about you. I think anyone would be worried about what his grandfather's girlfriend's family thinks. I started carefully, but I will admit our case is special. I wish I could be special to you in any other sense. She sighed and turned away. Ellie, I can't completely abandon common sense. Excuse me. After all, we live in a society. A society. Yeah. Ellie confirmed absent-mindedly. Are we going to school? Let's go. She suddenly livened up. We're going to school! Woo! Ellie didn't hold my hand, although she walked next to me, smiling mysteriously. It's a bit colder today than yesterday, don't you think? Yeah, I guess. I should tell them to bring me an autumn coat, or that jacket I brought last year. Your wardrobe must be bigger than my entire house. Since when did the desire to look beautiful become a crime? No, I didn't mean anything like that. Sorry. Like, why do you always apologize? She laughed, and those words reminded me of Himitsu. True enough. You'll probably also like walking with a beautiful girl, not some ugly duckling. In reality, I never paid much attention to how the people I liked dressed. Catherine, Himitsu, took an effort for me to remember what they usually wore, and I wouldn't call them fashionistas either. I guess. That didn't sound genuine. I like you in any outfit, and especially without one. Oh! Elisa suddenly blushed and lowered her head. Usually she was more than eager to keep the ball rolling about this. Need to let Ishida and the others know that everything is fine. I don't think they're particularly worried. Why is that? Well, because... Shit, me and my big tongue. Because it's not the first time something like that happened. In for a dime, in for a dollar. Ishida just can't keep his mouth shut, can he? She asked, irritated. And here I thought we decided not to keep secrets from each other. Not that we'd actually agreed on anything of the sort, but that line usually works. Wasn't hiding anything from you, not on purpose. So you were just going to omit a thing or two? Come on, Nick, enough already. She pleaded and hang on my arm. Such a beautiful day, and you're doing it again. You just said it was cold. I knew I was grumbling like an old man, but couldn't help it. The complaints were leaping off my tongue by themselves. I didn't say it was cold, I said I needed a coat. Yeah, sorry. Complaints followed by apologies. Where did I ever learn that? At school, the topic of my and Ellie's relationship had already lost its luster, so we were no longer looked like exotic animals in a zoo, which I was more than happy about. Never wanted to be at the center of attention. I didn't know how long I'd be able to last, but the spotlight is capricious, and people were already whispering about a guy from another class who'd knocked up his girlfriend. That's nice. Alright, see you later. Ellie's goodbye sounded rather cold. Bye. I deliberately took my time changing my shoes, pretending to struggle with untying the messy laces. This day started better than it could have, especially considering the events of yesterday. But how would it end? I was sitting in the classroom spinning a pencil in my hand. I'd always found tricks like that difficult. It impressed me how effortlessly they came to some people. Kagome, for instance, she was spinning a pen with all 5 of her fingers at the speed that made her hand look like a race car and mine a Toyota from the 1930s. Annoyed, I slammed the pencil back onto my desk loudly and was reprimanded by the teacher for it. Back to Ellie. Was her irrepressible love of fun really the only part of the problem? It was worrying how defensive she got every time I tried to discuss it with her. I was trying to take Ellie's favorite toy from her. I couldn't understand that, but was I just a toy to her as well? You grow out of playing with toys or get tired of them, and if they break, it isn't really much of a deal. What you thinking about, pal? Kiosuke approached me during break, slowly looked around and brushed off the chair next to me, and sat on it with such caution you'd think he was afraid to break it. Just about everything, and nothing. Right, I see. He scratched his chin thoughtfully and went silent. You see what? Ellie-sama has finally decided that a peasant like you is no match for her? Uh-huh, she sure has. Ultima! What's up, Eliza? What's going on? What's up, my friend? I said idly, bored to play along with this stupid game. Really? Kyosuke exclaimed by jumping off his chair, knocking everything off of the desk he'd been sitting at. You gonna go? Aw, have a good sleep, Eliza. It was good to see you for a wee bit. Hope you're enjoying the story, by the way, because tomorrow is the finale. The end. Whoops! He started clumsily collecting the notebooks and textbooks from the floor. And feel better, by the way. That's the most important thing. She in school. I think it's Sunday. No school on Sundays. No post on Sundays. Najima won't be happy. He won't notice anything. I'll be quick. Kyosuke was panting like he'd just run a half marathon. Having finished, he no longer looked quite so happy. So everything's alright with you two? Depends on what you call alright. Well, people doing alright don't say that. Just shrugged in response and looked at the pencil that stubbornly refused to spin at the speed I wanted. Wait, yes it is. The days are so weird. Oh, yeah, at work. Yeah, I got a little turned around. I feel that problem. I have that problem too sometimes. Don't come for you. I won't, don't worry. Get well soon, alright? It's all that matters. Do the get well of the soons. Nick, you're my friend, and Ellie-sama is Ellie-sama, so I have to be the first to know all the details. Asking to be a fly on the wall. I'm not planning that far ahead, but I wouldn't say no to. His facial expression suddenly changed. Wait, have you already had that, you know? Good night. Bye-bye. Are you asking me whether we had sex yet? I said emotionlessly. Sekusu? He said disgustingly in a way only the Japanese can. Kyosuke, for God's sake, you're overrating a simple sociological process. You know, Nick, the rich really don't know how the other half lives. His emphatically crossed his arms over his chest and turned away. That's when our weird English teacher entered the classroom. Who the heck is this guy? Who the flip is this? And here comes Rando, Kyosuke scoffed. Since our school was supposed to be an elite one, students were expected to know English well enough to communicate with native speakers by the time they graduated. But Mr. Stone didn't know a word of Japanese, which made the whole situation strange. Hi, fellows. How are you? You love his shirt. His dragon shirt. That is something. That is some shirt. How are you? He cheerfully waved at us with the attendance list. Never better. Although I personally wasn't bothered at all. Which you couldn't say about Kyosuke, whose academic record genuinely wasn't outstanding. Were you discussing girls, or... Oh, we can see it better. Yeah, that's a dragon, alright. Look at that. Were you discussing girls, or was that just my imagination? Mind if I join? I don't think you'll find it interesting. What's he talking about? Kyosuke whispered, pretending as hard as he could that he fully understood what the teacher was saying. He asked when you're going to lose some weight. I immediately replied, I'm not going to compete with you for the heart of a young beauty, but I still have a few arrows left in my quiver. That sounded ridiculous, because he looked about 25. Mr. Stone, we believe you entirely. Nick, why the formalities? I've told you many times. Just call me Lowland. As much as I dislike formalities myself, fraternizing with the teachers like this seem weird to me. Your new favorite character. New favorite character, the teacher. The English dragon shirt teacher. Kyosuke's embarrassed. You know him. Kyosuke, what? My chubby friend pulled on the sleeve of my jacket. See? In wasting your time on embarrassment, you might miss something important in life. He said thoughtfully and scratched his little beard. You do know that I came to Japan primarily to learn Zen Buddhism, right? It clearly wasn't to teach English. He wasn't exactly good at that. The idea of finding harmony between oneself and nature has been distorted in the West. Ancient practices have been put to serve short-term gains, and their integrity has been brutally torn from them. Meditation is meant to be used as a tool to learn a judgment-free perception of reality, not to relieve stress after a hard day spent in a battle for capitalistic ideals. I believe that only here, in the East, do people still preserve the true ideals of Buddhism. I quickly glanced at Kyosuke, who was batting his eyes in clear confusion, and found myself doubting that Rando would be able to find what he was looking for here. It is all very interesting, Mr. Stone. I'm not saying that you should cast off everything worldly and leave for a monastery, not at all. While you're young, you have every right to enjoy life. Corporations are the evil everyone must fight, externally as well as internally. It was strange to hear that from a man who worked at a school mostly running on Kobayashi Corporation money. Do you understand me? I understand you perfectly, Mr. Stone. I said enthusiastically. What the hell is he saying here? What the hell is he saying here? Kyosuke wouldn't stop. Then I hope today's lesson will go without any problems. He got embarrassed and walked to his desk. Rando at his best. Why do you even call him Rando? Most other people were better than Kyosuke at English, but almost none of the Japanese students were happy that Mr. Stone couldn't speak a single word of their language. So, he was often ignored or even openly teased. To give him some credit, he took it calmly and when could, fired back with some clever responses. But the words of the strange English teacher, Lowland Stone, had found a place in my heart. If all of us, myself included, were supposed to fight corporations, did that mean I had to fight Ellie too? What if he was the next unlockable character with the route and all that, Mafia? Should I go for it? Should I do it? I didn't see her as a representative of all the evil Kobayashi Corporation had committed, and if not for my parents' death, I would have been more than happy to date the heir to a multi-million-dollar company. That would be epic. Very weird, but could be something, we'll say. Could be something. Alright, give me a second, guys. Okay. Dead to the $1 million company. The car accident. I had convinced myself I had no time to think about it, that I had more important things to worry about. But was that really the case? Was I just cowardly ignoring the moral dilemmas I couldn't or didn't currently want to resolve? Still, even if there was a cauldron kept ready in hell just for Kobayashi Jun, Ellie had nothing to do with it. Deep in my thoughts, I didn't notice the bell ring or Mr. Stone politely asked the students to take their seats. But far from everyone listened to him. Lunch break is always the busiest time. Some people run into the cafeteria right after class to get the best seats. Some take out bentos they brought with them, and some, like me, just sit and look out the window, expecting lunch to find them on its own. Kyosuke went to another class on very important business, while Michael helped Mr. Stone bring a huge map of the U.S. he dragged in for the lesson back to the staff room. I was about to head to the cafeteria, just sitting around hungry. Was a bad idea after all, when Kagome approached me. "Want to have lunch with me?" She put a bento box on my desk. The few students still left in the classroom shot us disapproving looks, and remembered Kagome's promise not to talk to me at school. "If you don't, I'll leave at once," Kagome said before I managed to return to my senses. Rejecting her offer wasn't easy, and it wasn't even about Iwamura specifically, but just for normal politeness. Besides, my stomach definitely preferred homemade bento to cafeteria food. "Thank you," she said opposite to me in an empty chair and put an identical bento in front of her. The bento was delicious, as expected from Kagome. She was eating quietly, constantly glancing at me. No, more like blatantly staring. Do I have rice on my face or what? Finally got to me. "No, why do you ask?" Because you're looking at me so... How? So, I don't know. Like this. What else am I supposed to look at? She asked with genuine surprise. Another situation, if there was someone else in Kagome's place, I think she was flirting with me. "Iwamura-san," I started as politely as I could. Just tell me honestly, what are you trying to achieve? Do I need any special reason to thank my savior? Even by just offering this humble bento? Enough already. Angered, I pressed my thumb against the chopstick so hard that it cracked. Nico-san, not everyone has an ulterior motive. Who are you hinting at? Who indeed? She pretended to be seriously thinking about it. Wanted to just stand up and leave, but something was stopping me. If I didn't know you, I'd think you were in love with me. Do you know me, Nico-san? No, but your route's done already. You can't love me. She asked mysteriously. Kagome had fallen in love with me? No way. Although, why not? Could I explain Catherine Himitsu's Ellie's feelings for me with logic alone? And if it was more or less clear with the first two, Ellie's feelings remained a mystery to me to this day. Thanks for the bento, but I don't think it's entirely appropriate. Are you afraid of Kobayashi's jealousy? She smiled cutely. I am not. And then Ellie appeared in the doorway. She carefully examined the classroom, noticed us, and came closer after a second's hesitation. Nick, Iwamura-san! She greeted us politely, as if she were addressing her teachers. Kobayashi-san! Kagome tilted her head slightly. Hi, I shrunk inside, as if cowering from some sort of punishment. Having lunch, as I see. Sorry for disturbing you. You haven't disturbed us at all. I'm the one who should apologize. Iwamura interrupted her, took her bento, and stood up. Please take a seat. I quickly walked out of the classroom. What the hell was that? I see you two have a good relationship now. Ellie, it's nothing. Don't think that. What am I supposed to think? Nothing. I sighed. Ellie glanced at my bento, then suddenly grabbed the box and the chopsticks that lay next to it on the desk. That's very good. Did she make it? Clearly not me. She'll make for a perfect Japanese wife. Ellie, enough already. I realize how it looks from outside, but I don't know what's on Iwamura's mind. What's on her mind? Ellie drawled, stuffing the remains of my lunch into her mouth. When she finished, she gave me a satisfied smile and said, Please pass my regard on to the chef. I'll make sure to. I scoffed grimly. And I should go. I still have stuff to do. Ellie, wait. What else? Wanted to say that... What? Indeed, what? Nothing. Fine. See you after school? Can't make it today. The girls and I are going to karaoke. Or karaoke. Wow. I must be reading way too much. After all, I have my own friends, apart from you. Something struck her, and she gave me a predatory smile. Just like you do. Bye! Ellie left, leaving me with an uncomfortable feeling of words left unspoken. Yes, she'd misunderstood Kagome's intentions, but were they clear to me? And most importantly, were they clear to Kagome? Sometimes it seemed to me that the girl's actions were decided at by a random number generator. Although Ellie's love seemed just as random. I had a headache because of these constant thoughts and a stomach ache because Ellie ate most of the bento, leaving me hangry. I headed for the vending machines and brought several lemon buns. On the way back, I met Takehito. Who was gone for a bit. What happened since your last message? Ellie got very sick from the drugs, and I gave everyone a lesson on how drugs are bad. Don't do them. Don't you dare flip and do them. But, welcome back, D. Williams. It's good to see ya. Hope your time away was good. Takehito-san. I greeted her politely but coldly. She suddenly stopped. Anokin-kun, are you on your own today? How unusual. If I didn't know you, I'd say that was sarcasm. Do you know me, Anokin-kun? She smiled and moved along. Do you know me, Nico-san? Jesus, did I know anyone at this school? Well, I definitely know Kyosuke. Just before the bell rang, he returned to the class and walked to me. I just saw Ellie-sama. She seemed upset. Did you say something to her? My entire life doesn't revolve around Ellie, you know? Didn't intend to use bad substances. Good. Never, ever, ever. Bad. Although you wouldn't say that looking at my life entirely. Nick, what? If you want to know, ask her yourself. Waved him away and blankly stared at my textbook. Well, guys, I think I'm going to end it here for today. But tomorrow, we are finishing this. We are absolutely finishing this game.
It has gone on long enough, and it is time for it to come to a close. And it will happen tomorrow. Yay! I know, right? Let's see how the gallery's doing. I'm still missing this song. Amber's Fast Lane to Love. And One Day in the Limelight. And that's it. For backgrounds. Oh, we have so many. We are missing 2. We're missing 2 backgrounds. Wow. And as for CG... Woo! We are missing 1 here. We're missing a bunch right here. And 1 there. Alright, guys. Well, it's all comes to an end tomorrow. Hope you guys will look forward to it. Thank you all for stopping by. I will see all of you tonight with some Persona 5 Strikers. And tomorrow for more of this game. Take care, guys. I love you all. Farewell. Bye-bye.